yet again, there's no doubt, plenty of news to jump into. Boy, we went 3 hours in the last session with in the other time zone, which normally goes for 2. It's Heyman's in the house on the timestamps. Thank you, Heyman. And it's Africa Day, as you can tell by my new shiny image.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we're
God
doing...
bless the rains down in Africa.
God bless the rains. And I should have played the song. You're right. I got to cue it up before we get out of here.
Get that Toto.
Yeah. Although, yeah, it's the most un-African rhythm of all of any song of all time. So that's the whitest song ever recorded.
The whitest song ever, but man, what a good song. Chung, 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 chung.
It's the most white.
So good.
That is the whitest of all white songs, ironically. But
by the way, welcome, Leanne. Leanne, first time on the stage, I think, right?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Yep.
Guys, India's going to shits.
Oh, yes. That's the breaking news. That's the headline right now.
That's our headline.
Now, that's a headline. Hold on. Let's break that.
What's going on in India?
Hold on. Let's break that news right now. It's official.
The deadline ends in 3 hours, 30 minutes. We haven't gotten a response back from Facebook or Twitter. People in India are thinking, oh my God, are we going to lose the platforms we love and use every day? The whole country is confused. I think the government also is confused. I don't think they planned for this, but I'm excited to see what happens in 3.5 hours.
Is there a publication that has published a headline that says India is going to shit or anything like that? Like, is there a quote?
Yeah, I don't think the journalists are as creative as I am.
Well, give me a link that I can read.
No, Tyler, if there was a headline like that, Modi would have asked him to remove that, right?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
No.
Tyler, the headline I've sent you... the headline I've sent you is Facebook, Twitter to be blocked in India on May 26th, ? Here is what we know so far. I think that's the most informative one. I'm going to tweet it out at our handle right now.
Okay, and then I'll read it and retweet it. And so for those who don't know how this game works, welcome to Tech News Around the World, where we not only are a clubhouse room, which is fine. You can enjoy it just like any other clubhouse room. In fact, I think you'll enjoy it more than any clubhouse room, but I'm biased. But we also have a second screen experience on Twitter where we share the headlines that we're talking about on Twitter in real time. So you can read the articles yourself, and also you can share articles for us to read and share with the whole room. So what Akil just did just now is tweeted an article from India Today, and I just retweeted it back to the 1,100 followers, and we're adding now about 100 followers a day, which is fantastic. And so the article says India is going to the shits, as as Akil wrote on the article. But here's the headline. The headline is, as he said, Facebook, Twitter to be blocked in India on May 26th, ? Here is what we know so far. Social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram may face a ban in India if they do not comply within the new intermediary guidelines. Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram may face a ban in India if they do not comply with the deadline to accept the guidelines set by the government will end on May 25th. That's today, y'all. That means they've got about, 4 hours left?
3 hours, 26 minutes and counting down.
But nobody's counting. In February, the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology had given a 3-month time to the social platforms to comply with the IT rules, which expire, as he said, in about 3.5 hours. And they've not yet complied. And if they don't, they might be banned. Facebook and WhatsApp and Twitter.
Just some ramifications of this without getting into the legal act of things.
It sounds like we just cut off the internet.
The message that was sent to Facebook basically was, hey, if you guys do not comply, we will sue you for any damaging posts that are on the platform. So Facebook or Twitter will personally be liable for any rando tweeting crazy stuff on the internet from India.
And that goes perfectly into the one of the other big headlines of the moment from Reuters and BBC and Gadget and Forbes and many other sources reporting from exactly 3 hours ago on the BBC. I'm going to tweet this article out now. The headline is Russia threatens to slow down Google over content. Whether or not Google will take down this content, let me share this with you. And now you've got in the same day both Russia and India both threatening to shut down the social networks. In this case, it's YouTube in the context of Russia, and it says Russia's media watchdog has threatened to slow down the speed of Google if it fails to delete what it calls unlawful content. The Russia media watchdog has given Google 24 hours to remove videos it says relate to drugs, violence, and extremism. Google, which owns YouTube, could be fined between 8,000 and 38,000 pounds by Russia. The tech firm has been approached for comment, and the Russian media watchdog agency sent more than 26,000 notices to Google to delete what it called illegal information. And the agency said in a statement reported by state-run news agency TASS, the statement also accused Google of restricting YouTube access to Russian media outlets, including RT and Sputnik, and supporting illegal protest activity. So they are accusing Google of showing content they don't want. 26,000 notices were sent as such, and also for blocking Russian state media outlets like RT and Sputnik, and also for supporting quote-unquote illegal protest activity, which I assume they mean the Navalny protests that were sweeping Russia a few weeks ago. And similarly, they are simultaneously insisting that YouTube repost some content that YouTube took down in the past 24 hours. And so you've got Russia and India, and not exclusively those two, but those two are both in major headlines today related to their content moderation issues, let's call it that, with the social media networks, YouTube included, YouTube, Facebook, WhatsApp, Twitter, etc. And
Tyler,
yes, go ahead, Heyman.
Just so that I could balance Akhil's title for his tweet, I've got a important note from India as well, because I think I've got a tech news on India, because there actually came out just today in World Economic Forum. It says that drones are delivering vaccines to rural communities in India, and their cases are actually going down. They've peaked and they're going down. So it's not that it's going to shit. It's more the social media that's going to shit. Just want to clarify that for the
Can you send me the...
I have. You
did? Okay.
You know,
so I'm
it's still a terrible time there. It's a terrible time from a medical standpoint, but it's still, they've turned a curve.
Awesome. I see it now. It's from worldeconomicforum.org. I just retweeted it to everyone following the Twitter account at TNATW. And as promised, every time we bring up a headline, and we do about 30, 40, 50 every time we meet, we tweet them out. So I have to say, it is becoming one of the coolest news Twitter accounts on Twitter, because we cover news from all over the place. And you can read all of these articles that sound interesting. You can make a note and you can star it to save it for later and read the articles. But worldeconomicforum.org is a fine site, and it shows a photo of the drone itself in this article. India now testing drones to deliver COVID-19 vaccines. The purpose of these drones is to achieve faster vaccine delivery straight to citizens' doorsteps. That's fantastic. Love it.
Tyler, I just wanted to chime in that while everybody is looking at the whole Twitter and the Delhi police actually visiting their office, there seems to be new information around that, which I learned yesterday after our room, which is that Delhi police had actually tried to send them a summon earlier, and there was nobody to receive it at the Twitter office, and that is why they actually had to pay a visit. But having said that, this deadline, which is May 25th, which we are talking about right now, is basis the social media intermediary guidelines that were released in February, based on which any social media above 5 million users would have to comply, including stationing a grievance officer within the country in order to manage and control spread of fake information. So while the two issues are completely separate, I hope we are not just combining them because they are happening one after the other in sequence. I think Twitter is in trouble not because of that tweet only, what they've called and tagged as manipulative, but I think they haven't just complied. And the inside news, which some of the journalists are saying, is that Twitter's MD actually asked for this information to be provided directly from their headquarters, which is exactly the reason for which the Indian government is asking for redressal officers to be stationed within India, so that in cases like this, there is no need to actually go to the headquarter, which is in a foreign country, specifically 12 to 14 hours behind us or in front of us. It is about making sure that we are able to address these concerns within the local time zone and manage accordingly, because they are of grave importance. So Twitter is kind of undermining its own position by not providing a clear answer, is one thought process. The other is, of course, there's clear intimidation going on with the arrival of the police at a office which is obviously supposed to be closed due to the lockdown.
Right. Yeah, we started covering this yesterday at literally right now, 24 hours ago. It was breaking live, and somebody was there with a camera recording video of the police arriving at Twitter's offices in Delhi. And they're in the video. You can clearly see about 6 or 7 police-like figures wearing official-looking outfits. And they had come down to Twitter's offices to demand an explanation as to why Twitter is flagging the spokesperson for Modi's government, who's the official spokesperson for the government. And Twitter had flagged the tweets as potentially misleading or something of that nature. And so a handful of folks showed up demanding an explanation. But to their surprise, Twitter is not working out of their office. People are working from home. So I have that headline here. I'll just retweet it out again for folks who want to deep dive on that without having to dig back in 24 hours ago in our Twitter feed. But it's a really interesting development that has gone from, emails of, hey, can you take this down? Like in the case of the Kremlin and the case of India. Thus far, it's been non-confrontational. It's been, emails and, hey, you better take this down or else. And India has essentially escalated it by sending down physical. Why do you need to send 6 people down to the office exactly? I would not 1 or 2 be sufficient? Why 6? I'll let you guys consider why so many. Why that level of physical presence is needed to inquire about what Twitter's doing. And very interesting.
Hi, Tyler.
Yes, hello.
It's Tunji here with the Africa Day Avatar.
Hey, welcome.
So I'm in the creative arts and media, and I'm usually not in the tech space, but I do enjoy this room.
We're glad you're here, and happy Africa Day.
Particularly the conspiracy theory aspect, and you played it. So that's what I wanted to do, just create awareness about the room based on the avatar. So I'll be miking now and going back to the audience.
Very cool. Well, you can hang out up here. By the way, for those who are new, the way we do it is those of us on stage, I'm just scrolling to make sure. Yep. Michelle, Donna, Shoan, Mabana, Victoria, Heyman, Faraz, Jennifer, Amanda. Tunji, you're the new one. By the way, what a cool name, Tunji. Dr. Francine Hardaway, welcome back. And Ben and Monica and Lakeisha and Mayra and Deedam would be the other newbie on the stage. I say that affectionately, but I love the word future strategist in your bio. That's a fantastic title. Agatha, Ravi's been here. I think this might be 3rd or 4th or so time. Nalormi's been around, and the rest of us have been here every day for months now. And so really everybody on stage, with the exception of a couple of folks, we meet here not only every day, but twice every day, many of us, for a few months now. And how this works is, we all are covering the planet geographically and professionally in an incredibly diverse fashion, which affords us a remarkable opportunity to dig into these headlines with lots of different perspectives, where we often disagree and have our own process. Sometimes it even gets very heated, believe it or not. But because we meet so regularly, it never gets. No one never gets injured. There might be an occasional bruise or an eye gouge, but no hospital visits yet, thankfully.
Eye gouge.
Yeah, but
we are an extremely codependent family.
Yes, yes, dysfunctionally codependent, and but it's
Akil, how are you recovering from your eye gouge?
Yes. But welcome. And by the way, so what we do is anyone in the audience who has an article to share from their part of the world geographically or professionally, we want to hear it and jump up on stage and share it with us. We love nothing more than that. And that's how it works. But everyone on stage brings headlines themselves. I've always got an endless supply of headlines. And I guess we will pause there to see if anyone on stage has something to share. And let's let the newbies go first. If Didam or Tunji have anything they'd like to share. And then other than that, the only other real strong rule is that we have a ladies first policy on stage. So if you hear a lady's voice, please yield the floor. But let's jump into it. Anyone have something to share? Going once, going twice.
Yeah, I just wanted to just bring awareness to Africa Day.
Yep.
Like you're doing with your avatar. I don't know if
Yes.
you've spoken to it. I was in the room about 5 minutes late.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's pretty much it. And I know that I'm not in the tech industry, so most of my news wouldn't be relevant to the room. But I am a frequent listener, particularly in the morning rooms.
Cool.
For about almost 2 months now. So thank you.
You did say the word Africa, which means the cash register goes off because when we say Africa, you'll sometimes notice there's a strange sound in the background when people say the word Africa. And that we do that because Africa is just really shaping up to be an incredible. I feel like it's really getting to this really ripe stage where investors are starting to come in, and I know that because as Mabwana shared a headline with us recently that none other than Sequoia Capital, who's arguably the best VC firm in the world, just did their first investment on the continent. And that's all I need to know, that Africa's about ready to pop. So because when they went into Asia, they were the ones of the first in Asia, and then Asia popped, and then they went in, when they got big into Europe. What happens is Sequoia goes in somewhere, and then all of the other investors from the U.S. come marching in shortly behind them. And that's incredibly good news, I think, for the continent because you also just had headlines that we've been tracking here where out of Lagos, Nigeria, there was a new unicorn, a fintech company. And to this point, on Thursday, in this time zone, we're going to start 1 hour early to bring together a bunch of African investors, tech investors, and African tech startups who are going to pitch those African tech investors and try and raise money so they could become the future unicorn on the continent. And that's Thursday, this time zone, starting 1 hour and we're going to start an extra hour early, just so we can stand back and watch and learn and hopefully get inspired to go visit. I'm already inspired to go visit, but this is all kind of in honor of Africa Day. And
I'll be there, Tyler.
Yep, fantastic. And we're starting to develop quite an impressive roster of folks that are going to join. So I hope everyone joins us for that. That's a little plug. You can find that and RSVP. You can RSVP for events now in Clubhouse. By when you find the event, you can click the little bell and then you'll get a notification when that event is starting. And you can find all of our upcoming events by clicking on the title of this room. And we have one starting right after this room, which one is that? That is the
MedTech.
Yeah, the MedTech room, which is starting in about 2 hours. And then you've got the tomorrow tech news around the world. And then you've got the Asia tech news with Monica. And then you got the blockchain news and the VR room. And then the one I was talking about tomorrow, we start an hour early. So check out all those and click the bells on the ones you want to RSVP to. And we'll see you then. But let's get back into the headlines.
And
who's got
Tyler,
something to share? Yeah, Heyman.
I wanted to clarify, when you said the cash register goes on, is there any donations going on?
Not yet.
Not yet? Oh, okay. Because I was going to say that the previous story involved Zipline of Africa too. So
go ahead.
Africa.
What is it?
Okay.
I see.
The drones dropping off vaccines in India.
Oh,
One of the companies that's participating is Zipline, which actually has been doing a lot of work in Africa.
Yeah.
I just wanted to mention Africa just in case you were doing the chimes every time.
Since you mentioned Zipline, I'd just like to point out that Zipline actually started a pilot in Hyderabad with Apollo Hospitals. It's owned by a good friend of mine. Back in 2020 itself, they did a few deliveries, not COVID vaccine, but other medicinal deliveries. Apollo owns a large chain of pharmacies apart from the hospitals. They've done successful pilots, and this is actually a full-fledged rollout that we're looking at.
You've done it in Ghana
Zipline,
and Rwanda in Africa.
So I know Zipline very well. It's one of my favorite companies. My fund was ready enough to invest, but one of the things I like about them is that they innovated in Rwanda because the drone regulations were favorable to them. So Africa, one of the great opportunities of the continent is that you're often in environments like Rwanda, where a strong government wants to bring tech there, and they let them essentially go wild and test out their drones. And they clocked up millions of hours of testing, which, as you know, for anything that flies is important. Versus trying to do that in the U.S. Good luck, right? With that crowded airspace, and obviously FAA is regulating it quite hard at the time. But yeah, Zipline had its start in Rwanda, but then they actually stumbled in Tanzania, where I'm from. It kind of shows the government can be both positive and negative. But in Tanzania, essentially, government tenders got involved, and they essentially tried to replicate what they were doing at the local level and kick them out. So they had a very expensive tryout in Tanzania, their next market. But then otherwise, as mentioned, Ghana, other markets have been going well. But props to Rwanda for letting them start and get their foothold. And it's a great example of sort of reverse innovation. You can start in a small market that's maybe favorable to you, and you can then expand to the north or across the south as well. So I love that company.
Very cool.
So just an interesting tidbit here. In India, if you want to fly drones, you will have to be registered with the DGCA. Every drone needs to be registered on their cloud digital sky platform. Every time a UAV takes a flight, data is uploaded to the digital sky platform in real time. You will also need permissions from local authority, the state authority, and the national authority to fly these things if you're doing it beyond line of sight. So I'm just curious to see how they kind of worked around this whole regulatory headache.
Ah, interesting. So
you want to take news from Myanmar?
Say again?
Do you want to take news from Myanmar?
From Myanmar, sure.
Mm-hmm. Myanmar allows Tinder, but access Dissent Heaven's Twitter and Facebook. That's the title.
Yes, did you share this on the Twitter feed?
Yes, in the afternoon. Do you have it? I can read it. It's quite a long list.
I think it's coming up. Here it is. No.
Yes.
You shared.
I'll send it to you now.
Let's see, Huawei, and then you shared Myanmar. Here it is. So I'm retweeting it now. It says Myanmar allows Tinder, but axes Dissent Havens, Twitter and Facebook. And what they mean by that is they're still blocking the apps that don't approve of the junta regime, but they are allowing Tinder because on Tinder, well, they're blocking Twitter and Facebook because they're correctly worried that their citizens are going to use it to protest, and they are correct. Their citizens absolutely will use Twitter and Facebook to say lots of negative things about this military government who came in and retook, kind of canceled the democratically elected government. But they're now allowing Tinder, which is a very interesting choice. And maybe they want to improve birth rates in Myanmar. I'm curious why exactly they're allowing Tinder. And it'll be very interesting to see if the citizens there end up using Tinder as a form of communication channel, because it seems like everything else is blocked. But what this does tell us is something very interesting, that the cell phone connectivity must be back on. Otherwise, Tinder wouldn't work at all. And there's no point in turning Tinder back on if the cell phone signals aren't working. So if the cell phones are back on, but Twitter and Facebook is blocked, that means they probably can use VPNs to some extent, maybe to a limited extent. And that means some people probably can get on Twitter and Facebook. So I just retweeted that. And it says Myanmar's junta has shared list of over 1,200 online services and domain names it deems acceptable for the public to use. So you can jump into that. Thank you, Cheryl. Interesting to keep track of what's going on there in Myanmar. There's other interesting articles here that I'm retweeting out. Speaking of Bitcoin momentarily, Bitcoin bounced back a little bit, and it's rumored, according to this article that I'm tweeting out, that it's in part due to Elon Musk's proposed green mining solution. And this is being reported by The Independent. The price of Bitcoin fell almost 50% off of its all-time high on Sunday after China announced yet another crackdown on cryptocurrencies, but the momentary bouncing back seems to be related to Elon Musk's proposed green mining solutions, because it was Elon Musk criticizing the dirtiness of cryptos as to why they're no longer going to accept Bitcoin payments for Teslas. And that started kind of this sell-off in the crypto land. And interesting to see that they're now...
So, Tyler, there's a massive backlash against that already, right? So basically what the headline, the truth behind the headline is that over the weekend, Michael Sawyer and Elon Musk got together and got a couple of the miners together. They had a conference to decide how the energy usage should be. And now the Bitcoin, the whole community is just saying, we don't need gold like that. They're just literally turning against those two. That's not the whole point of the Bitcoin, right? Having a centralized meeting to decide how the energy should be. The whole point about Bitcoin is that everyone should have the freedom to be able to run a node on their computer through decentralization. So there is already a massive backlash. If you go through Twitter against him and Michael, do they want to become the gods of Bitcoin? They don't need that. That's not the whole.
Ben just shared an article as well that I'm retweeting now about how Goldman Sachs is not giving up hope on Bitcoin. You want to talk about that, Ben?
See lots of Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Sorry, who shared an article?
You did. Yeah, I'm just retweeting your Financial Times article about Goldman not giving up hope on Bitcoin.
Oh, yeah. Well, that was just a good... Ramin actually sent that to me, so I thought that was...
And also on that note, HSBC. So if anyone knows, HSBC is a China bank, right? They've been pivoting in the last 10 years towards China leaning. So they came out today, headline, their CEO, saying that, yes, they will not be accepting Bitcoin. Bitcoin is not an asset class. I guess they're taking a dig on Goldman Sachs article yesterday, and also that they have informed all of their wealth management businesses to advise or on anything on Bitcoin. The second headline broke out today is that Goldman Sachs just been given a license to China to serve wealth management clients. So just think about that, right? You can't have a bank that where China's HSBC Bank, which is a China pro, and goes with it does everything not to piss off China and its view on certain asset classes. Here's Goldman Sachs has got the license after 5-10 years of lobbying, and then they are just talking about. So I guess Goldman is just whatever Goldman says, I think you just got to take it with a pinch of salt. They are just they are a brokerage business. Wherever there's a volume, they're there to make money. And next week they'll just quickly will be the first to say, sorry, we just stopped taking crypto and Bitcoin. So I think I would follow the lead on HSBC, given that the banking have within Asia and emerging markets.
Yeah. Speaking of Asia, Huawei in China was notably one of the first big Chinese companies that America banned. And now Huawei's founder says the company should dodge sanctions, the U.S. sanctions, by pivoting to software. And this was kind of touched on a few weeks ago, that they are fundamentally a hardware company, and their hardware company is being deeply impacted by the U.S. sanctions. And so the CEO is saying, hey, we need to pivot into software. And he's exactly correct. I would do the same in his situation. Software is the future for Huawei because the industry is outside of U.S. control, says the CEO. And he's more or less right on that as well. Huawei founder CEO Ren has reportedly urged the Chinese tech giant's staff to turn the company into a major software force as a way to alleviate the impact of devastating U.S. sanctions. Exactly right. It'll be interesting to see what kind of software they get into. Thank you for sharing that one as well, Cheryl. I'm just retweeting your tweet there to.
And Tyler, while you're sharing that, on the earlier news that we talked about the India, the decision, I don't know if you guys discussed that. There's a Wall Street Journal article on Florida's new law bars Twitter, Facebook, and others from blocking political candidates, right? So I think the real intention from India, the way they're going after Twitter is that there is an election 2022 and 2024, right? They're very much concerned about how and what happened in the US, the back of Trump, right? And, how some of the certain states went from, Republican to Democrat, and they are truly worried about that. So I think that's what the, extreme BJP, the internal, worried about how that 2024 election could, shape up. And so they're very worried. And that's why I think, they're laying the groundwork in terms of, what Twitter can do and not. I
Kieran,
think that's.
I brought up the same point in the room I was in. I got immediately cancelled, so I had to leave.
But that's the truth, right? I mean, if you think about the, West Bengal and Tamil Nadu, South India, so that's 80 million. That's something BJP spent. Oh my God, the amount of money and the lobbying they did in order to break into South India, the recent election they had. And then if you look at the Bengal, I think that's back up. You saw the Bollywood actress, the tweet
I'm
about.
gonna run out.
That's right. So so I think it's just that. I think they're really worried about what the trend and some of the things that BJP think they can get really stronghold, but they've been really failed just due to purely because of all the social media and the power of social media. So I think they're worried about going into 2022 and 2024 election. So yeah, that's something people don't talk about. That's pretty much what it is. And also the other point is that the way they frame this within internally within the BJP party is that the colonization, colonialization, and also the Trump, the way they're framing it internally is that who's the West to come to our country and tell us what to do with our elections and our life. So when they put it into that hardcore BJPs. Trust me, I mean, it just really turned nasty. For example, a couple of weeks ago, there was someone who's head of Facebook. She was a twin. So what happened was that she works for Facebook, and apparently they found out that she's a BJP leaning, supporter, and she removed content from Facebook. And what they done is they used her twin sisters to plaster her, around social media to get her removed. And what happened was she resigned, and now she left Facebook just because of the relentless pressure from the BJP hardcore element.
I agree with you, Kieran, but I'm neither left wing or right wing. I believe we need both wings to fly, and that's my official position on it for now.
Yeah. So there is a lot of political.
Oh yeah, no doubt. I want to turn it to MedTech. Dr. Danish, you want to do this one on JP Morgan?
Yeah, not sure if this has come up in previous things, but JP Morgan, as many know, I'll just kind of give some context. JP Morgan was involved with
Amazon?
a bunch of different, with Amazon
Berkshire Hathaway.
And Berkshire Hathaway in Haven, and that whole thing fell apart. And then comes Amazon Care, on its own, and is now going after other employers. Has been working internally within Amazon, and I will tell you that the whole health tech field has been shaking in its boots. And instead of just sitting on the sidelines, JP Morgan decided to bring Dan Mendelsohn of Avalier, who's a big name in the field, to come in and lead a whole new initiative called Morgan Health, where they essentially will fund people that are competing with Amazon Care, which I think is just an incredible move and a real slapback, and I love it. So wanted to bring that up and what it means for digital health. And I know there are a few other people on here that know a lot about this, but it's a really exciting thing. The leadership with Dan Mendelsohn is also an interesting move, especially considering how well connected he is on the regulatory side, since he used to work in the Clinton and Obama administrations.
We did share this when the news was breaking a day or two ago that JP Morgan Chase was going to branch off and do their own thing. And to recap, JP Morgan Chase and Amazon and Berkshire Hathaway were doing trying to revolutionize healthcare. Amazon went solo, I think, because they realized they need to own it themselves, and that maybe they felt JP Morgan Chase and Berkshire Hathaway being kind of big, old, slow, Titanic, Wall Street, banking type entities, maybe didn't contribute much on the innovation front, and Amazon might not need a lot of the money, as much money as they thought. And so they went at it alone. They're doing their own employees. They've got their own game that they're developing. And not only is it now being used by their own employees, which, by the way, they have millions of employees, Amazon does, it's now open to their employees' family members within their own households. And they're starting off by doing a few different things. One of them is you can call and speak to essentially a mental health professional anytime, 24 hours, either by chat or by video call, etc. And we assume that it will then branch out into other services and then branch out geographically. The next logical step would be to all Amazon Prime members and include that as part of Amazon Prime. And then it gets really interesting because that's millions and millions and millions and millions of people. But what you're saying is in this headline from Forbes, which I have the link and I will tweet it to the Twitter account so that people can do the proper deep dive, is that JP Morgan Chase is also going to go at it alone. And they also, as part of this, want, as you said, a part of it is they are put aside $250 million to fund promising healthcare solutions, they call it. And they're calling it Morgan Health. And this will also enter into a strategic partnerships. The company said the new division, which will be headquartered in Washington, D.C., will also focus on health equity issues. And you're right. I think it is now a little competitive with Amazon's approach.
Oh, it's 100% competitive. Yeah. And I think that what's interesting is it speaks to the two models, right?
Right.
Morgan Health sees itself as a platform, and Amazon Care sees it as a delivery system. And I think that's the difference. And I can tell you, I have my opinions on it, but I don't think Amazon's going to win this one. So I think Morgan Health's approach is the right approach. I know that people are worried about Amazon going to Amazon Prime, but to date, Amazon Care has been focused primarily on large self-funded employers with 500 or more employees. And they've already announced that they're going past just mental health. They're going after primary care. So the way they look at it, which is fascinating, is they always try to match you with the most convenient channel for your clinical need. And so let's say you have a problem and it needs more than just a FaceTime call with your doctor. Well, they'll send a nurse to your house, which I have feelings about, but they'll send a nurse to your house to help do vitals and maybe do a little bit more. Or if they need to, they'll even now compete with Heal and send a doctor to your house as needed. So they're triaging based on what the clinical issue is, and that's their entire model. What's crazy is that they're upending the old school approach of charging a per employee per month charge. And this is like sort of like in the nuances, but it's a huge deal. So a teledoc charges the employer whether the employee uses the system or not. Amazon said, we won't charge you $1 unless one of your employees uses it, which is completely upending the entire old school model. And I think that's probably the greatest innovation that they've done. Everything else that they're doing is kind of things that people have talked about, and companies like Transcarent, Livongo, and Teladoc have been working on these models for a long time. And so I don't think that the platform wars are over by any means. And I think Morgan Health coming in and saying, hey, we have also a ton of employees. We have a ton of connections. Let small startups, if you want, we will not only connect you to our strategic partners, but we're going to keep part of the upside. And I think that's the right model. I think that's why Amazon loses and Morgan wins. But it'll be TBD.
Dr. Dinesh, this is Heyman. Just wondering, like, could there be some sort of if I could put a conspiracy theory in, why are they choosing Washington, D.C.? Is it because of the fact that the startup is there? Or I'm just thinking, like, why?
No. Startups are not in Washington, D.C. That's like the...
I know. That's what I'm wondering. Like, I know the D.C. area, like, it's there's a desert, right? There's a...
For startups.
Not only healthcare desert. Yeah. No, I'm talking about in terms of healthcare.
Right.
But I'm just wondering why they would go for the Washington, D.C. area, because that's the center of power. I'm just wondering, will JP Morgan
That's a good question.
use AI analytics to figure out which senator is going to be sick and away, or which person's... I'm serious. Like JP Morgan mines data, right? So I'm just wondering why they would choose Washington, D.C. I wouldn't let JP Morgan near Washington, D.C.
And you know,
because
I'm
Morgan
wondering...
Health... I'm sorry,
go
ahead,
sorry.
Letitia.
Go ahead, I'm sorry. That was a question to Dr. Dinesh.
Yeah. So what I was going to reply back with is, Heyman, the Amazon is doing all of this at a big risk.
Yeah.
And I will say that as somebody that's in the industry and building my own company that is also potentially at risk, I hope none of my investors are listening. But at the end of this year and the middle of next year, a lot of these telehealth provisions could be reversed.
Yeah.
Which then kills like 80% of telehealth companies and 80% of digital health companies.
Same in Canada.
And yeah, so exactly. And so, the reason why I believe Morgan Health is out there is to lobby the living crap out of this and make sure that none of those are reversed. And by the way, they're already won. I can tell you right now, Dan Mendelsohn, again, is a great hire for that reason. He is, and I don't mean to call him a lobbyist, but he's a lobbyist. The big difference is right now, if you guys Google and check, there is a current bipartisan step number one, which is bipartisan bill that has just been introduced for audio reimbursement for telehealth. And guess who's involved? All the organizations that have already been announced that Morgan Health is partnering with. And so it is a fascinating step. I think that's the real move here, is the big lobbying for what I will call big digital health.
Yeah, because I didn't suspect that they were in there for the good. Sorry, Lakeisha, go ahead.
No, I was going to say that makes so much sense. And then part of me wonders where Walmart is in all of this, because while they're not in medtech, I know they've been dabbling in healthcare just overall. And so I just am not familiar enough with their strategy and the markets that they've targeted. But I wonder whether that was, a competitive, approach that Amazon took. Was like, okay, Walmart either is or is not in this market, so let's eat them, alive, really, because Walmart doesn't have the tech capability. Just a hunch, but I'm just curious.
Your hunch is so right. You should be on the strategy team at Walmart because they just acquired MeMD in the last couple of weeks. If you guys have been watching what's happening, they just had a major acquisition of MeMD. So you are 100% right. That is exactly what happened. I think Walmart was reactionary to all this Amazon Care news, and this market is just getting flooded with money. And Cal, tell me that Best Buy is in there trying to get in, because it's coming. I promise you. I think at the end of the day, all of these large retailers are seeing the writing on the wall, which is they have to evolve from just selling products to selling services. And I think that's what's happening across the board. And healthcare is a good high margin service.
Yep, indeed. And by the way,
Danish, we've talked about this. It's so explicitly stated that's the only growth strategy Best Buy has, right? Literally, explicitly. So.
And by the way, in 2 hours from now, Ben and Heyman and others are doing a MedTech news, and then Dr. Danish introduced us to Pre-Rock, and who's brilliant, and then my friend Eugene, who is head of innovation and startups at Bayer, are planning the debut of what they call Health News Around the World on Saturday. And you can see both of those events on the calendar, the Tech News Club calendar, by clicking on the title of the room. But maybe in the future, those two will merge and we'll have one mega kind of health tech, med tech gathering. That could make sense as well. But I'm stoked that you guys are all doing this. And by the way, Carl today proposed getting together all of the ed tech folks together to do an ed tech room, which will be on the calendar in the next few days as well. So also looking forward to that. And welcome back, Paul Ark from Bangkok. Great to see you on the stage, Paul.
Thanks, Tyler.
Yeah.
It's I haven't been spending that much time on Clubhouse lately, but
I missed you,
trying to get
Paul.
back into it. Missed you too, guys.
Yeah. What's going on in your neck of the woods? Any kind of updates on things that are happening? I know in Thailand there's lots of talk about legalizing hemp production and all kinds of interesting happenings.
It's funny you mentioned that because one of the rooms that I still try to make time for is the Thai Tech Weekly. It's a room that I run every Tuesday night, and I think for the last couple of weeks, me and the other moderators have been trying to get this woman onto Clubhouse. This woman, Kitty Chopaka, who's probably one of the leading advocates for cannabis legalization in Thailand. She's a lawyer by training, but she knows all about the regulatory policy. She knows about the science. She knows about the biology. She knows about the botany. She's just a all-around knowledgeable person about this business in Thailand and globally. So we've been wanting to get her on the Clubhouse for a while, but she's on Android. So now that the app just came out on Android, she downloaded the app. She popped onto Clubhouse for the first time tonight. The first room she wandered into was mine, and so I just grabbed her, pulled her up on stage, let her talk about cannabis for a while, just kind of poked it and prodded around it, and just kind of get a sense of where legalization is going, how far it's coming along. For those in the room that may not be as familiar, Thailand is probably the one country in Southeast Asia that is, I'd probably say, the furthest along in approaching some form of legal regime around medical cannabis, and hopefully potentially maybe adult use at some point. And definitely there's a lot of interest in uses around hemp, whether it's for potential food additives and ingredients to potential industrial material use, and possibly even alternative fabrics. But there's plenty of use cases for hemp.
Yeah.
So that looks like that might be the easiest way to kind of push cannabis forward in Southeast Asia, is through the hemp side. So it was just really quite interesting you mentioned that, because it just came up tonight.
It's for those who don't know, Thailand is an incredible food producer, and Lakeisha knows what I'm talking about. And it's in fact, Thailand is essentially farming in some sense. And if they switch over to hemp production, it could be truly unprecedented hemp production on a global scale. So it's no small opportunity for Thailand and the region. But glad to see you back here, Paul, as one of the leading investors in Southeast Asia. And do jump on with us more regularly. It's great to have you on here. And Ryan, I see you popping in the audience. I was just about to talk about the Poparazzi, which I know you're an investor in. You want to say a few words about Poparazzi? I see you doing it online. If you want to jump on it, you can raise your hand. Otherwise, I'll jump into that one. So one of the hot new apps kind of just breaking out today in the App Store. I think it just reached #1 in the App Store, called Poparazzi, which Ryan in the audience is one of the, if perhaps the earliest investor in, knowing Ryan. And it's a very cool new app as far as I can tell. I need to get into it myself. But thus far, it seems that it's based around kind of the old traditional fun of doing photography with manual cameras, where it's you can only take photos of your friends. You cannot take photos of yourself. And so your profile is based on the photos that your friends take of you. And the rule is you can't take photos of yourself. No selfies allowed. And then you have this profile, like you're a celebrity, of all the photos that your friends took. And Ryan Hoover, who's the genius behind Product Hunt, is the assumedly the first investor in the app, and he keeps popping into he's now come in and out of the room a couple times in the last few minutes. So I was wondering if he wanted to jump up and say why he invested in it and what's the secret sauce behind it.
What if you're lonely and nobody takes pictures of you?
Then you need more friends, Akil. That's what that comes down to. But and by the way, he and his girlfriend Susie were saying, during COVID, like maybe you're limited by the number of people that are able to take photos of you at the moment during COVID. But now that COVID's coming to an end, like I said, it's the #1 app in the App Store at the moment. So it'll be very interesting to see if this new social dynamic plays out the way that it might, so fingers crossed for them that it'll be the next big hit in the social game. What else? Anyone else on stage want to jump in, something to share from your part of the world, geographically or professionally?
Hey, did you guys cover the NewNew app where you pay people to take decisions? Like you pay them and they take a decision because you paid them. Have you guys covered that?
You pay them and what now?
So, Tyler, you pay me to eat, let's say, 10 onions, and because you paid me $10 to eat 10 onions, I should eat the 10 onions now. And it's called the NewNew app. It's like picking up.
Where's it based out of?
I think China. Let me check.
I have not. Yeah.
Wait, but it's illegal in China to overeat now, right? Because Xi mandated that you should not be doing the bangang, or I'm not sure.
Oh, like the
guys,
binge eating on social media?
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because of the shortage, right? So I'm sure this app is going to be killed on the
Very
App Store.
interesting. No, I haven't heard of it, but if you find the article, we'll retweet
Yeah, I
it.
found the article. I'm just tweeting it out
Okay.
at you. It's the founder is a guy called Brandon Wong.
Okay.
So
send it to the Tech News Twitter account, and I'll retweet it to everybody right now. Which, by the way, Magda just did. So I'm retweeting your article, Magda, if you want to say a few words about it. Microsoft uses GPT-3 to let you code in natural language. Unlike in other years, the year's Microsoft Build Developer Conference is not packed with huge surprises, but there's one announcement, which is Microsoft is now using GPT-3 to let people code using natural language. Covered by TechCrunch. So I'm just retweeting that for folks who want to dive deeper on that. And then,
can I do some Midwest news?
Ladies first, and then we'll go back to you, Dr. Dinesh. Who was that?
Hey, Tyler, it's Amanda.
Go ahead.
Hey, so I don't know. I apologize. I'm in meetings back and forth here. Did we talk about now Sirius also is partnering with TikTok?
No, go ahead.
Okay, so basically Sirius is partnering up with TikTok, and they're going to have a TikTok channel, which is interesting because now there's been so much discussion about recommendations and whether we should use the recommendation engines or whether we should use DJs or what we should do. But now the wave is having these TikTok, I don't know that they're influencers. I actually don't use TikTok, so I don't know what they're calling themselves. But they are basically putting together their favorite playlists, and they're acting as DJs, which I find fascinating because now we're going to this whole rage of influencers again. So I found that kind of interesting. But yeah, so that came out, I believe, yesterday, that partnership. So interesting.
Yeah, and yeah, kudos to Sirius, where your company and getting into the social game seems like a smart strategy. I'm curious to see the essence of how that works. Did you tweet out an article about that we can dive into and share?
Yeah, I did, Tyler. I think I tagged you yesterday. Did you see it? Or
I think I retweeted it, but do it again because it's been 24 hours, and we'll send it out again, and we'll give it another deep look into the details. And then the article that you were talking about, Akil, from BBC News.
It's a LA app.
Yeah, it says the app that lets you pay to control other person's life. And yeah,
I tweeted out saying pay me.
Yeah. Yes, and the CEO's name is Brandon Wong. How would you feel about being able to pay to control multiple aspects of another person's life? A new app is offering you the chance to do just that. Brandon Wong recently couldn't decide what takeaway order one evening. He asked his followers on social media app NewNew to choose for him.
The founder seems to be Courtney Smith, with Courtney spelled weirdly.
Okay. NewNew is the brainchild of LA-based entrepreneur Courtney Smith. The app, which is still in beta or pre-full stage release. Yeah, we covered this when this article came out, which was a few days back. And I remember it kind of kicked off a debate around the future of social media. But let's retweet this again.
It's just we're talking about what a society we are building, Tyler. It's such a. I mean, think about just the way that people can abuse others now, right? Imagine if you're in the borderline financial situation, really, it just opens all kind of worms.
Yep. I remember it now. That it was about a week ago we had that conversation.
So this is actually the second time I tweeted out the same article to you, by the way.
Yeah, I think you were the one who shared it a week ago. So I'm wondering if you got some equity in the company or something, or you don't want to mention. No. Well, you're doing a good job.
Akil wants to be a venture capitalist. So
yes, well, he's got some advisor shares, and he's doing his part as the marketing team for the company. So to your article, Amanda, and I love how both of you guys are working hard for the companies you. Amanda works at Sirius, and Akil clearly works at this new app. But this TikTok partnership, which was really just announced yesterday, Sirius XM is leaning into TikTok. The satellite radio company and Pandora parent today announced a partnership with the social video platform to power several new initiatives, including a TikTok channel on Sirius XM, hosting TikTok playlists on Pandora, and re-airing of Pandora live events on TikTok. Oh, that's interesting. So now Because well, if you have these folks who are addicted to using TikTok and they're not using Pandora, this is a very clever way to promote Pandora through TikTok and hopefully drive people back to Pandora. The hosted playlists on Pandora are the first of the new initiatives to launch starting today. Popular TikTok creators will curate, host, and promote their own Pandora playlists to their fans on TikTok, starting with Bella Porch, the TikTok influencer who now has nearly 70 million followers, is best known for her viral lip sync video, which blew up and became the most liked video on TikTok. She also makes videos. Oh, so that's interesting. I wonder if there's what the finances behind this partnership are.
And that's what I was saying, Tyler. It just is so interesting to me that it's almost like the DJs are going out the window. It's like well, influencers precisely. Are kind of taking over the world, which Correctly. I just find fascinating.
Amanda, that's actually an interesting point, which radio DJs used to be unofficial influencers, and they would create playlists and play them over the air. And now anyone can make playlists and play them for themselves or potentially play them for other people. And you might start seeing TikTok influencers becoming, to your point, radio DJs with their playlists that they want to share to their fans. And that could drive additional visibility to the artists, that they want to drive awareness and attention to. So it's a really interesting extension of influencers, and I wonder if it will reach over into this new social commerce game where maybe these influencers are able to monetize these playlists in some capacity. Because as we talked about in Asia, you have none other than BTS, the biggest musical act in the world at the moment, and Blackpink, the second largest musical act in the planet at the moment, are doing essentially a hybrid of their concerts, which attract tens of thousands of fans live, and they're selling merchandise live on stage during the live streams of these performances, and they're actually selling the shirts and shoes and bags and umbrellas and the props that are coming on stage. It's the combination of a huge high production level pop concert and a QVC live, shopathon. And that is the future. And you can imagine a smaller scale version of that on TikTok, where an influencer, not BTS, but somebody with, 1,000 followers or 2,000, or I'm sorry, 1 million followers could be doing a dance performance and selling stuff during their TikTok dance live performance. And that's where it gets very interesting. And that's where this Sirius, by the way, the music that they're dancing to is a Sirius XM or Pandora playlist. And so they show the playlist of the songs they're dancing to live while they're selling stuff. So it's a wild world we are heading headfirst into. So thank you for sharing that. And I retweeted that out. And I also retweeted out your article, Akil, but let's leave it at two times now. Let's not bring that article up another week from now.
I'll try.
Yeah. Anyone else? Dan, normally you've got some green tech news.
Sorry, not today. I got a board call coming up in 2 minutes. Bye.
No worries. Anyone else on stage?
The planet will not be saved today.
Yeah, the planet's going to hell in a handbasket. But anyone else on stage? I got a whole bunch of articles, so no worries if not. Okay, I'll jump into my steady supply of headlines. So Florida is, according to the New York Times and everybody, and this is the biggest headline in the tech sphere today in America. So from the American news, we've got the New York Times and all the big American publications, the Wall Street Journal, CNN, New York Post, Associated Press, TechCrunch, everybody essentially are covering the story of Florida trying to pass a new law which would regulate how Facebook and Twitter and other social media platforms moderate speech. Specifically, it would fine social media platforms for banning political candidates. And why is that so important, you might ask? Well, there's going to be a very interesting political candidate in the very near future running for the next presidency who is banned from Facebook and Twitter, and I wonder if any of you can guess who I'm talking about. He's going to be running for president, and he's banned from Facebook and Twitter and every social media platform. Anyone can guess who I might be talking about?
Jared Kushner?
No, not Jared Kushner, but you're getting warm. And you'd be even warmer if you guessed Ivanka Trump. But Donald Trump is no doubt going to run for president again, and he will be a political candidate. And so Florida is trying to force...
We did a survey in the morning, didn't we?
We did. Yeah, let's reveal. We're going to reveal the results of the audience survey in a minute. We did this in the last session where we asked the audience, should social networks be forced, essentially, to allow political candidates to have accounts on their platforms? Because there's a long-standing rule that TV stations, radio stations must give equal airtime to political candidates. And so if you give airtime to one political candidate, you must give equal airtime to another political candidate. And if Facebook has Joe Biden, then by some extension of that argument, they must give equal airtime to Donald Trump. So we did a poll and we said, hey, audience, should Facebook, Twitter, etc., be forced to give equal airtime to Donald Trump on their platforms? And we did the poll and we said, raise your hand if you think Facebook and Twitter should welcome back Donald Trump as a political candidate. And the results was 2-1. No, they should not, essentially. Right, Cal?
2250.
Yeah, around 22-50. So about 2-1. Double the people said no, they don't need to accommodate Mr. Trump, even if he's a candidate. And it's a very hot political topic in the U.S. at the moment. And it's why I tweeted out yesterday or the day before, what's going to happen if he is going to run again? You can bet everything you own on that. And I know this is going to anger a lot of people, and I don't live in America, y'all. So hey, this is up to you guys. I'm in Thailand.
Also, Tyler, you're just focusing on US. In 2024, you got India as well. Election days.
Yes.
So these guys are coming. It's such a huge thing. This is what's going to happen in Florida.
But hear me out. Trump's going to run again, but he's banned by Twitter and Facebook. Okay, and they probably won't let him back on, right? And then his fans are going to say, we are being silenced. We're being marginalized. We are being,
motivated to attack the Capitol.
Yeah. We are being, not
kill.
Yes. Yes.
You are on fire.
He's on fire today.
Have they not discovered Clubhouse yet?
Yeah. No, Trump has no. Shh, Cheryl. Shh. Should be quiet about. Careful, Cheryl.
About it.
Yeah. So, but if anyone's going to bring him on, Justin will. You can be assured of that. But if he runs and his own fans get so fired up that he's not being treated fairly, he's not allowed on the social networks, which do play an important role these days in determining who wins the elections. And so that might really aggravate his base to really, fire them up. And if he wins, now this gets very interesting indeed. What happens if Trump wins and they not only didn't allow him on, but, kind of held him back by not letting him on? And if you know anything about Donald Trump, he doesn't take kindly to people who, throw sand in his face. So what do you think is going to happen to Facebook and Twitter if they refuse to let him back on and he wins? So
he's going to speak through. He's going to speak through someone's account. Tyler, that's what he's going to do. I don't think there's any rules limiting him. Creating
he tried that. No. That has been tried already, Kieran. Great hypothesis. And what happened was his son-in-law. It was either Jared or his own son. They were quoting him. And those tweets or Facebook posts were removed that were quoting him. That was very interesting. That was about a month or 6 weeks ago. So they're taking quite strong measures to make sure his voice isn't shared on the platform. But the question is, if he wins the next election, what happens to Facebook and Twitter? Will he shut them down? And if the House and the Senate, if the GOP regain control of the House and the Senate, they walk in there, they take a vote, and they say, bye-bye, Mr. Zuckerberg. Bye-bye, Jack Dorsey.
It's
game over.
It's absolutely amazing to me that somebody who's been impeached twice and who's clearly a moron, we're even having a conversation about the possibility that he could get in again. It's
Yeah, but
pretty
Ben,
interesting to
Welcome
he
to
lost
USA.
by tens of thousands of votes. It was like 0.1% of the. It's incredibly small margin that he lost by. So it's not ridiculous to assume that he could win. He's certainly going to run.
Oh yeah, no, it's not ridiculous at all. It could all happen. You can see it happening. It's
Yeah.
just I find it fascinating.
But my
that's
point,
even a
yeah. But let's
possibility.
focus. What does happen? What does happen if he does win to Facebook and Twitter? And the GOP all get together on Capitol Hill, and they go in the day after they win, and they say Facebook is now banned for some reason. They make up some reason.
What do you mean by banned?
We'd best start building that decentralized social network now. I think
Facebook,
overlap.
Facebook
Tyler,
doing a crypto social network. Yes,
Tyler, this is James at the bottom. I think that what we saw there happening with the deplatforming of Trump by Twitter may actually be a bigger deal than we even know, and that I think that really what we are seeing there is a bellwether of the end of the nation state as the most important governing body in the world, and the rise of these companies as in charge. In other words, I don't think that never would have happened with Reagan, for instance. Never in a million years at that time would he have been deplatformed by some media power. But they are flexing their muscles because they're in charge.
Well, yes and no, because we start. Were you with us at the start of the hour
I wasn't.
The breaking news today, an hour ago, was that India and Russia both are in the headlines today because, let's recap very quickly, India has told Facebook and Twitter, you need to take down X material that we find objectionable, or you need to get out of the country. Twitter has not really complied. In some cases, Twitter has complied, and in some cases, they've not. And 24 hours ago, literally 24 hours ago, right now, it was breaking news with live streaming video that we shared breaking news in this room. There was a gentleman in the lobby of Twitter's office in Delhi where Modi's team had sent a police force of about 7 guys in uniforms to go to Twitter's HQ in India, and they were demanding an explanation of why Twitter had flagged the official government spokesperson's tweets as being, potentially untrue. And Modi didn't like that. And they were there. Why have 7 physical guards go down? Why not just call and say, hey, why are you doing this? Why send 7 physical people down there? Why 7? Why not 2? So
if we were this well run, we'd be a much better country by now.
Yeah, but here's the point, James, was luckily for Twitter, Twitter's office was shut down and everyone was working from home yesterday, or Twitter might have been shut down yesterday in India. And the deadline, by the way, for Twitter to comply with Modi's regime expires in precisely 2 hours. Am I right, Akhil?
2 hours, 23 minutes.
2 hours and 23 minutes from now, if Twitter doesn't comply, they might be forced to be shut down in India.
The thing is, Tyler, behind all of this is that, look, you have 2 strong personalities in some of the biggest democracies, like, you got US and India. And they got into power by pure sentiment, right? BJP has a massive, Hindu base, and Trump has this kind of polarized US base, right? So just imagine the fact that the very fact that they're pushing and they managed to do something against Facebook and Twitter. Imagine how the energy that that Trump fans will feed into that. And to me, this is a worry. We just literally, before even just stand for it, we are just electing him in, right? So these tech companies had to be very, very careful how they deal with this,
right?
Because this is yeah.
But they're already dealing with it, because today alone, the other headline in the news today is Russia is telling Google that here it is right here. Reuters is reporting it, BBC, Engadget, Forbes, to name a few, all reporting. Here it is. Let me read it to you. I'll read you the BBC one right now. Russia orders Google to delete what they call "quote unquote" illegal content or face being kicked out of Russia. Google faces an ultimatum in Russia. This is just reported just now from Reuters and BBC and Engadget. The country's Internet Commission gave Google 24 hours to delete many instances of what they classify as illegal content on YouTube. If Google doesn't comply with the orders, it could face fines valued at 10% of its annual revenue, in addition to seeing its services slowed down in the internet. And that tells you who controls the pipes inside of Russia, doesn't it? When they can slow it down on a particular company like Twitter or YouTube. And by the way, they did this to Twitter about 3 months ago when they were telling Twitter to remove some objectionable content. And if they didn't, they were going to slow it down. And they did, actually. So they confirmed the fact that they can slow down the service of any particular entity within Russia. And now they're telling Google they're going to do the same if they don't remove objectionable content on YouTube. The Russian agency, has also accused Google of censoring Russian media outlets like the state-owned entities RT and Sputnik, which they also don't like the fact that RT and Sputnik, these Russian media outlets, are being banned from YouTube. And also, yesterday, 24 hours ago, there was a headline that Russia is angry at YouTube for banning one particular YouTube account, which is an individual who's very friendly with the Kremlin, it turns out. The journalist did some digging. And Russia is insisting that this person be reinstated, have their account reinstated, or YouTube will have to leave Russia as well. So these games, it turns out that these social networks, YouTube included, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, WhatsApp, and let's go back to WhatsApp for a second. In India, last week, WhatsApp changed their privacy policy. And India said, no, you cannot do that. And if you insist on doing that, you cannot do business in India. Well, guess what? India is 1 billion people, and WhatsApp has ambitions of becoming a mobile wallet payment system in India worth billions of dollars. So guess what WhatsApp did? Sorry, boss. Okay, hey, honest mistake. Forget we mentioned it. And they capitulated. And WhatsApp is going to do whatever India says to maintain the ability to tap that $1 billion market.
The rollback was so quick, Tyler, I didn't even get the message.
That's right. They stepped down super fast from that, and Twitter is doing that to an extent, and they don't really have a choice because the thugs show up in their lobby and force it. They don't really have a choice. You either do what India says or you get the F out of our country. And India's not India can do this because they're so big. Russia can do it too. But lots of countries are starting to do this. And what's interesting is to see how America's doing it now. America's doing it in a very different American style, where they have a senator down in Florida who's trying to push a bill in Florida to, force the social networks to accept political candidates, and it's going to go through this long legal process for a year. And they're starting it now because they know it'll take a year through the whole legal court process. In China, it takes 10 minutes. You do what we say or you get out now. By the way, they don't only do it to foreign companies, they do it to their own Chinese companies, because we've been reading headlines here every night for the last 2 weeks where Beijing is telling their own tech giants, you have to fix all of these inappropriate data collection schemes that you've been using inappropriately of your own user data. You know how much time they gave their own tech companies to fix it? Everyone remember in the room? 15 days. You have 15 days to fix this entire problem, or you stop doing business in your own country. And that's how Beijing deals with their own tech giants. 15 days. There's no court. There's no law. There's no cases. There's no endless appeal process. You do what we say or you get out of our country, of China, and you're a Chinese company. So it's these tech companies, I think, are realizing they don't have any pull at all when it comes to these governments. They do act with some interesting exceptions, like in Myanmar, where Facebook voluntarily shut down because they didn't want the Myanmar military junta regime to use Facebook and put out false information. So, but generally, I feel like the governments are really showing they hold the keys to what happens within their own jurisdictions. And that's where, in our previous time zone, which you can see by clicking on the title of the room, we got into the debate of a blockchain social network, which might become a very important real thing in the very near future. Because if governments are going to control these social networks in their backyards, how will these social networks operate in the future?
Tyler, I'm so glad you're ringing this bell here, because this, I think, is one of the biggest risks we all have that favor our free speech, for example, because right now it's happening over there, right? But what we're seeing is, what I see is that every one of us here in this room is at risk of being deplatformed at any time because of our geography or association or affiliation. And what we're seeing is the weakness of these centralized systems, that they must answer to governing bodies. And so I'll tell you real quick, I don't know if you know about this, but when I saw how valuable Clubhouse is, I set out about 3 months ago to start a project called the Open Communications Initiative, where I have about 300 people now, and we're working to replicate this same experience of voice, but integrated into Bitcoin Lightning nodes on the thing called the Umbrel. So it's node run. So it's exactly what you're talking about. We need more systems like this where volunteers, and even not just volunteers, but with Bitcoin Lightning, we can now
But we
incentivize
had
people
that
to.
we had Steam It, right, 3 years ago. What happened to Steam It? I mean, they did an
It's not
experiment.
Steam it. I'm not Steam it. I'm saying we need this. We need to be able to talk with our voices without a centralized authority telling us we can or cannot. And that's one thing we're working on. And there's a lot of other things that can be done like that. We need to take back cloud computing to our own selves. And what I'm seeing happening in the Bitcoin world right now is very exciting because people here on Clubhouse are connecting their Bitcoin nodes with Lightning
James, can I
Network
ask a
channels.
question? Because
Is
I
This
Ben
get
may be
where
too
here?
you're
deep for
Wait
this
one
room.
I
second.
get
Is
where you're
Ben
going
here?
with this. Sorry, can I just ask James a quick question? James, are you planning on having like a decentralized platform with like people or trusted people with probably the most influencers or something being nodes on the platform, and
The way that it works for
if you could just let me finish, encrypting it on the blockchain and throwing it in the cloud? Is that what's happening here?
I don't believe we need another blockchain as long as we have the Bitcoin blockchain. Real quick, what we're planning is using this network of Lightning nodes, which is where you look at the Umbral node, which is where you run a
Got
Bitcoin
it.
node and a Lightning
Yeah.
node.
Can you
And the
dumb it
idea
down,
is
please?
what's that?
Can you dumb it down, please?
Let
I'm
him
not
finish.
Yeah,
technical.
Let
okay.
him finish, Akhil, and then
Let
ask
me
more
try to make
questions.
it simple. Basically, what you have is people establishing these connections called lightning channels in which they stake Bitcoin. And what I'm noticing is when you have a network of people all doing that, and there's dozens now that have done that now, or 60 on the graph, you essentially get a web of trust, a decentralized trust network that allows us to start offering other services within that network. This is brand new. It's only happened in the last few months, but I'm seeing the potential to use these connections that people are making with Bitcoin lightning channels as real financial and data infrastructure to take back cloud computing. It's a pretty big idea and it's new, but I think there's something really big going on there and everyone should keep an eye on it.
James,
Yeah.
this is Carl. Can I question the declaration that social media is free speech as opposed to free amplification? I feel like we're conflating the two. Have we gotten to a point in society where these two things have become intrinsically linked? Because they're still not in my mind. It's free amplification.
Well, we're
Agreed.
I
talking about
wanted
here.
Yeah,
I'm
free
just saying,
reach.
Carl, you and I are
So
talking right now freely, right?
Monica,
Meaning there's no
Monica,
one
Monica,
impeding
go
our
ahead.
speech.
We generally,
so
guys, we generally have
Ladies first. Yeah.
a kind of lady. Just Monica, go ahead.
So, I wanted to just say one thing, which is when we're talking about free speech and we're also talking about what the governments are doing. But I think we need to understand the reasoning behind why the governments are becoming the way they are, especially against social media platforms. Social media platforms have the ability to influence election results, have the ability to exercise, if not done right, the power to actually influence riots and personal loss of lives. I think that is what we need to question, because if I were sitting in government right now, I would ask the same question that the Indian, the Russian, or even the US government was asking all these social media platforms, because you have to understand, when it's a matter of law and order, at that point in time, free speech has to be subdued as compared to the prevention of the loss of any more life that may have been done only because of the application of false messages and a matter of an opinion. And completely understand the need for free speech, completely understand that we are democracies as well. But you tell me that when we are in a situation in which people are actually literally killing each other, this is not an exaggeration, but literally killing each other, at that point in time, would free speech trump the right for police to take action in order to curb that particular riot going on or not? And what these
So what?
social platforms are doing is saying we will not comply because, and that is, now look at the guideline and look at the implication. They are saying we will reply in 24 hours. In 24 hours, towns will have burned down by that time in India. What should we do? I'm not taking the side of the
yeah, this
government.
is.
Can
I'm
I just
just
respond to this, if you don't mind? Sorry to.
Have Monica finished?
Yeah, that's what. This.
No, I'm not taking the side of the government. I'm just reading the law of, I'm just reading the mandate, because I come from a payments background. When we follow guidelines, we are supposed to understand the nuance as to why a guideline has been placed, not try to go into the spirit of the guideline and then try to question it basis an emotion, but basis facts. That's why I'm just again, putting this out there, I'm not supporting the government or I'm not supporting anybody else.
Monica,
So
I think you make a
I'm
great
One
point. I
thing.
think, look, a lot of the things that Modi is saying and Putin is saying is that someone is sitting in Silicon Valley through his social network. If he can influence a riot in a village in Gujarat, that's their narrative, right? So, to them, they want to sort that out. And by the way, guys, there's another breaking news just broke out. Biden and Putin's going to be meeting next month face to face in Switzerland. So I think that's quite interesting. Just imagine, that now we used to think about in the past, they use trade wars and, think about sanctions, and now this also come into the mix, right? So I think it's quite interesting the fact that they decided to have a face-to-face meeting next month.
So just
So
to
on the
respond to
topic,
one second.
sorry, go ahead, Echo.
Yeah. Just to respond to what Monica said, right? I don't think saving lives is priority number one for the government, at least in the last few years that I've seen. Because if saving lives was a priority, they'd start with the internal media houses in the country. They wouldn't start with the social medias of the world, especially a year or two before the elections are coming up. So I think they have a fundamentally different mandate, which is more focused on control of information in the country rather than trying to save lives. Because if that was a focus, they would be doing 10 other things before this.
Okay.
I don't think you quite have understood. The loss of life in a riot is not about whether somebody supports Modi or not. When you are caught in a frenzy, the loss will be on both sides, and that is exactly what is happening when these kind of riots happen. So when I was in Delhi at that point in time, when January 26th, the riot did happen, and what Facebook has refused to provide information about the rioters who were actually Facebooking live at that point. Really sorry to say this, but whether there was a Modi supporter in the farmers' protest or whether it was me standing in the farmers' protest, it doesn't matter because all
So
of
I
us
just
have lost.
Thank you, Mike. So with this whole conversation about social networks and its influence, this is why I brought the conversation to this before. The second word in social network is network, and the whole thing depends on everybody in all countries having real-time access to their network, to the internet, without censorship across borders. And fundamentally, I think we've proven that the states have access to the cables under the sea, to the cellular networks, etc. But the one thing that doesn't respect these country borders is these low Earth orbit satellites that are spinning around, and an increasing number of companies are putting out there. So I really think that this is the stage one: is get everybody connected to the internet in a way that is impractical for states to disconnect. That's the stop number one, and then stop number two. Yeah, maybe all this fanciful stuff. I know it's my idea, but I'm going to call it fanciful stuff about blockchain, social networks, etc. So that's, I think, the most important stage one. Everybody needs a connection to the internet that can't easily be taken down by the state, and that is technically feasible, particularly with multiple satellite-based networks.
Yeah, or at least challenging, especially at scale. Is your point, Ben? Yeah, because it's
make it impractical. Yeah, I didn't say impossible, but impractical.
Right. That's the debate point, because we spent an hour debating if it's technically feasible and whatnot, and the nuance of all of that. But it's important that we do kind of understand and debate that and get real experts in here to really highlight, because the reality is the technical feasibility changes over time, because hackers can hack hardware to circumvent the intended uses of things, and you could probably find a Ukrainian hacker to make Starlink work outside of the purview of how the government anticipates that it will work, and then they can't shut it down, and it becomes a simple process of the hackers telling everybody, hey everybody, here's how you get your Starlink satellite to work outside of the constraints of your government. And that's how tech works, by the way. Those things happen all the time. So whether or not, the government believes they have control over these things, and whether or not we debate them endlessly, the reality is, things change. It's a move. The ball's moving. It's not a fixed stationary target we're shooting at. So to this point, you mentioned the underwater cables. I couldn't imagine. You must have been reading my mind telepathically. The BBC just came out with an article a few hours ago about not only are the tech giants fighting governments, the tech giants are fighting each other in the cloud, but it turns out that the cloud is actually deep under the sea. What do I mean? The headline from the BBC a few hours ago: tech giants fight cloud wars deep in the ocean. That's the headline. It does make sense, though, once you understand what they mean. The fact that you can post a picture on Facebook or a video on YouTube and people can see it anywhere in the world is mind-boggling, but it takes a lot of things behind the scenes and below the ocean to make it happen. it is easy to overlook that our access to the internet relies on thousands of miles of cable crossing the world's oceans. They provide the plumbing for the internet. 98% of all international internet traffic travels through these deep sea cables. Some connect neighboring countries, such as the 80-mile cable between Ireland and the UK. Others, like the Asian American Gateway Cable, stretches 20,000 kilometers and links continents, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But the point that they're raising in this article is that Google, in particularly, is investing in a number of its own cables. The Curie cable connects Chile to the US, while the Durant cable is in a partnership, connects the US to France. And now they are facing off with other parties. And there's now this Google map in this article that I'm going to share from the BBC, which itself is worth seeing. This map of all of Google's cables from the US down to Chile, stopping in Panama, from the US in New York over to London, from Virginia Beach over to France, from Lisbon down to Cape Town, stopping in Lagos. Truly fascinating. But yeah, the cloud, as we know it, technically is deep under the ocean through these cables and in the servers on land.
Tyler, actually, if I can add to that,
please do.
Actually, a lot of the big tech companies are testing technologies and casings to put servers also underwater.
Yeah, and in
simply because
and in the air, in the satellites as well. Yeah,
Microsoft did that successfully.
Cooling costs go down dramatically if you can submerge these servers.
Yeah, data centers. Well, we have that's why, by the way, the northern part of Sweden has data centers for Amazon, Facebook, and Apple. Google went to Denmark, which we're still pissed off about. But and one of the largest Bitcoin mining operations was by my buddy Sam Cole up in the north of Sweden, because the cooling costs keep everything nice and tidy. And Iceland as well, with a combination of the cold weather and the geothermal, it makes Iceland an interesting spot for data. And you're right, not only underwater. We had a report just in the last 2 days ago that they're now testing Japan. NTT Docomo is testing data centers in space.
That's right.
And then what happens? Because, by the way, there was an article 24 hours ago that China's space station has an unusually long, powerful arm that was causing concerns.
Looks like the Canadian arm.
Yeah.
Looks like the Canadian arm, but yeah.
Yeah.
And also, Tyler, I think one of the things you didn't mention is that China laying 7,500 miles cable into Europe, right? The internet cable. There was a headline a couple of months ago on that, and there's a lot of tension. So they are laying their own cable, internet cable, from through the Seabelt Initiative.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I've just tweeted a hypothetical link from London to Johannesburg via Starlink. This is in Starlink's future, not too far in the future, with no ground stations. So, and I've tweeted the exact source in the well-researched video. So that's pretty fascinating if you can do that. Then states, even somewhere as big as Africa, which ought to be the place that finds it easiest to block something like Starlink, because it should need to have the most ground stations to relay the signal, right? Because it's the biggest lump. Even that is going to struggle to stop that type of communication. And this is just one network, Starlink. You add a load of others, I hope we're going to get to the point where we have ubiquitous internet that cannot be controlled by states as quickly as possible.
And this is John. We discussed the potential of the basic physics of either moon-based or space-based computing at scale about a couple months ago in this forum, and a couple of interesting things that came out of that. You've got access to lots of solar energy. You've got access to cooling in the shade of a solar capture device. The problem that emerged in that discussion was that high bandwidth throughput transmitted through our atmosphere is subject to a lot of data corruption. So the physics of energy supply and cooling in space around the moon are great, but the challenge would be the fidelity of the high throughput data transfers passing through the atmosphere.
Interesting. Here's the most interesting article I've seen in a long time, coming from The Verge. This is wild, y'all. Chicago Police Department constantly surveilled a man after its predictive police system said that he would be involved in a shooting, but not whether he'd be the shooter or the victim. And the gentleman's name is Robert Daniels. And it's a really interesting article. It's quite long. So just to summarize, Chicago's predictive policing program told a man he would be involved in a shooting, but it couldn't determine which side of the gun he would be on. Instead, it made him the victim of a violent crime twice. And he is now, laying he's been involved. He was, in fact, involved in a shooting, but he's now blaming the police and their predictive policing system for leading to this shooting. And
Tyler,
It's
Was
so
the police the one
tragic.
that
It's
shot
kind of
him?
like Minority Report, because that's exactly what, like, the
Tyler.
whole
Well, what I would say is
morality
that
issue was
it's tra-
in Minority Report was the fact that if we predict something, are we kind of making that thing happen?
Yep. So let me read this real quick. It says, Robert McDaniel's trouble began with a knock on the door. It was a midday in 2013 as he made lunch in the crowded 3-bedroom house where he lives with his grandmother and several of his adult siblings. When he went to answer the door, McDaniel discovered not one person, but a cohort of visitors, 2 police officers in uniform, a neighbor working with the police, and a muscular guy in shorts and a T-shirt sporting short graying hair. Police officers weren't a new sight for McDaniel. They often drove down his tree-lined street in the Austin neighborhood of Chicago, making stops and arrests. Out of the 775 homicides tracked by the Chicago Sun-Times in 2020, 72 of them happened in Austin. That's almost 10% of the city's murder rate in a region that takes up just 3% of the total area. The city of Chicago puts out a heat map of where gun crimes occur, with areas of moderate shooting, numbers shaded in blue or green. Red splotches represent large numbers or high concentrations of shootings. On the map, Austin is the color of a fire engine. And then it goes on.
Tyler,
it's a very long article that goes on from there, but I just tweeted it out, so I encourage everyone to take a look. You'll see the map, and it's a very, very long, but it does go into a lot of detail about what happened to Robert McDaniel.
So I would
That's
say
why
Texas to allow unlicensed carrying of concealed handguns. An hour ago, I just got it from BBC. I tweeted out at you guys.
So I would just like to say that it's tragic, it's saddening. I mean, so, on one hand, it's basic probability and statistics, right, that has been incorporated into this more sophisticated system. And then the other piece to that, so you have the probability based on where someone lives and the heat maps, targeting or giving predictive statistics in terms of the likelihood that someone would be involved in some sort of violent interaction. And, 10, 15 years ago, when I last looked at similar types of data, they were planning prisons, the construction of prisons based on 3rd grade reading levels. So, this particular technology may or may not be associated with that data set, but I could see all kinds of saddening, really, trends that are based in data that's been collected for years and years and years.
Well, again, that was the whole point of Minority Report, is like we shouldn't do that. Like you can't predict. That gets into a touchy ethical question, but that's for another day.
Yeah, but
the cynical side of me says that it's probably the police that shot him just to validate the technology.
Dog joke, man. Dog joke.
X-Files.
Yes, so here it goes.
I really miss the X-Files team. And the thing is, there is a TV series on Netflix called Person of Interest that actually hits this on spot.
No pun intended.
Sorry for that one.
So before we go down too far along this path, today is the 1-year anniversary of George Floyd's murder. So I just wanted to add that to the conversation as well.
Okay. Akil or whoever's, is that Michael?
No, that's Michael. I can't whistle.
Okay. Other important headlines to jump into here.
The Texas one, it's blowing my mind.
What is the Texas one?
They just passed a bill so that people can carry around unlicensed concealed handguns for anybody who's over 21 years of age.
Yeah, and apparently you've never been to Texas, Akil, because that is...
Yeah, I was about to say, wasn't that always
that's the most Texas headline I've ever heard.
So they're just people carrying around guns and nobody's asking them any questions?
Welcome to Texas, son.
That's Texas, bro.
This is your first time in Texas, son?
That is utterly insane.
Welcome to Texas, boy.
That's
You
why I
ain't
live in
from around
LA.
these parts.
This is what I love about tech news around the world. It's like people are like, it's like Texas. You missed out on basic Texas.
They try to say LA is dangerous, bro, but this is exactly why I live in LA. It's safe as hell here compared to Texas.
So people are sending in headlines of all kinds here. While I go through them, and I now see, Ben, your Starlink one, which I'm retweeting.
Tyler,
Yes.
I tweeted another one, this Whatnot, which I'm not that familiar. Did you see they just pulled together $50 million for more of this live stream sales stuff for like Pokemon cards and other items. So this is more of this live stream selling that's really taken off in the media lately.
More than you, it's just getting started, and it's going to tip into high gear. This whole social commerce thing is set to literally explode like a bomb. And the real explosion, I predict, is going to happen on June 2nd. Why June 2nd? Because June 2nd is Facebook's big annual F8 gathering. It's the biggest event Facebook. It's really the only big event Facebook does every year. And it will be in just a few days on June 2nd. And we will be live streaming it here in this room, just as we did for Google's live event a week ago, where Google announced they are doing social commerce with YouTube and Shopify, where any YouTube video, even historical YouTube videos, and by the way, they have millions of videos, all of the products in those videos can now be tagged automatically by their AI and linked to e-commerce shops for you to buy directly from those videos. So you can imagine how much money there is to be made from that. And Facebook, no doubt, is going to announce at F8 on June 2nd their partnership with Shopify and their future, which is all about social commerce. How do I know that? Here's why. Two very, very important reasons. Number one, Michelle, who works at Facebook, sent me a DM saying so. I don't know if that's good enough for you. It's good enough for me. But if that's not enough for you, think about this. Facebook knew they could do this anytime. By the way, it works in my Instagram today. For the first time, I opened Instagram 2 hours ago, and there was a lady in a bikini, and the bikini had buttons on it, little white circles, and when you click the white circle, it says buy now. And I could buy the bikini, although obviously their targeting is a little off. I'm not the target audience for a bikini. It
wasn't your size.
Yeah, well, it wasn't my size. Yeah, and I don't wear red. I mean, how silly is that? But
Tyler, you should have stopped posting.
You've been looking at ladies in bikinis. That's why.
Yeah, also, Tyler, you've been posting on Twitter. All this beach. Just laying down,
yes,
only showing your legs.
Yes, true. Those who are in our DMs know I do send photos of me relaxing on the beach. But more to the point, the reason Facebook is announcing this now, the timing is always very interesting. Facebook could have done this months ago. Why are they doing it now? Well, you may have noticed many headlines lately that Apple changed their iPhone operating system and the software in your iPhone to block the data that Facebook was essentially built on. Facebook was dependent on the ability to track users and where they went around the web. And Apple said, no more for you, Facebook. Game over. No more data for you. Your business model is trash. Your company's garbage. You can no longer track our users, Apple users, and everything they do on their iPhones. We don't like you anymore. Go home. And Facebook said, okay, I guess it's time to launch social shopping. So instead of buying stuff on Amazon, and the data shows when people see things they like on e-commerce, like on Amazon, they go onto Facebook and Instagram to research those items. And why not sell them those items on Facebook and on Instagram directly, which they're going to do because that's what's happening in Asia. So Facebook has known they could always branch into social shopping, which is $1 trillion business opportunity. And now they're going to do it because their traditional business model is now being threatened by Apple because Apple's not sharing the data. Hence, my prediction that their big flagship event on June 2nd, they're going to announce social shopping in a tremendously big way. So stay.
One question, Tyler.
Yes.
Just one question.
Go ahead.
Does Twitch, the largest streaming platform on the planet, owned by the largest e-commerce company on the planet, Amazon, have a social commerce structure because Twitch does not have to share data via cookies or any other funky methods.
What's the question exactly?
Do they have a social commerce platform?
Today? No. In the future, of course. In the future, Twitch people will be here. What it is today Twitch is streaming primarily video game content. Yeah.
Not really. So
not
there's a lot of
exclusively.
no, not really.
Yeah.
I mean, for followers of Twitch like me, there's a lot of lifestyle content that's come up with people just walking across and living their day and whatnot, and people find that interesting.
Yeah,
and there's a lot of gaming also happening.
Yes.
So you actually have two audience sets who can spend a good amount of money on products, who spend a good amount of time on the platform. The platform collects its own data. They don't need to share data for advertising or anything of that sort. And they're also owned by Amazon, which is the biggest e-commerce company with the fanciest algorithms. So
yes, and then
I think maybe I can I can just give a hint to Akil there why I guess maybe Amazon might do live shopping in the future, but they're already an independent shopping ecosystem. So you don't click outside of Amazon. So the on-site conversion that will start happening on Google and Facebook now is already happening. So it's less of a threat for them, the whole Apple update, as well as the cookie disappearing globally. I don't know if that gives you a hint.
I got
An
everything
answer
I
to
need.
that question. Yeah.
I got it.
But isn't Amazon doing live shopping? I saw that they're like really increasing the videos and everything and kind of going in that direction. So isn't that just going to be launched directly off of Amazon?
Hi, this is Shirley. Yeah, Amazon is doing live, but it hasn't been rolled out. It's been tried out. It's definitely not something global yet. So I think they're going to definitely sort of embrace that a lot more.
Yep. The number, in the same way that people are copying Clubhouse, and it's hard to think of a company that hasn't copied Clubhouse in the last 4 months. The social commerce, it is even a far bigger financial opportunity than even Clubhouse. Because, by the way, Clubhouse isn't finance. No one's making a penny from Clubhouse relatively at the moment compared to e-commerce.
Hey, I thought you kept getting tips for inviting people in.
No. So far I've made a whopping $50, and that was by precisely one person tipping, which I need to remember who that gentleman was and thank them. They're probably in the audience, but and I tipped Justin $20. So that's the extent of the economy of Clubhouse from my personal experience. $50 in, $20 out. I've got a whopping $30 profit on Clubhouse.
Net 30. We've got a meal sorted out.
Which, by the way, that's
Net 30.
That's not bad for 5 hours a day for 2 months. If you break that
money.
If you break that down per hour, we're talking a good 2 cents an hour. So I'm not complaining.
That's more than
and you're in Thailand.
That money's going to be little money.
Yeah,
but he's in Thailand, so it goes a long way.
That goes a long way. You can get quite a lot for 2 cents. But my point is that there isn't money in the Clubhouse ecosystems yet. Okay, today, yet it's being copied by everybody. Now, social commerce is going to be printing money like a goddamn printing machine from the minute you press play. And so you can imagine how copied it will be. I mean, anybody who can do anything that can start doing anything related to social commerce will do. You'll start seeing video games selling stuff in the middle of the video game in places you never expected it. So that's all going to be coming in very, very near term. But the real kickoff of that will be, I'm predicting at F8, and we can watch that together. And if they do announce Shopify as their kind of e-commerce partner in the middle of that event, you better believe I'm going to have my finger on the buy button for Shopify yet again, like I did during the Google event. Anyway, more headlines to share. Yes, go ahead.
This is Daphne.
Hey, Daphne.
Yes, I don't have Twitter. I apologize for that. But I was just wondering if anybody on the panel have researched the status of the automotive vehicles right now.
The what vehicles?
The status of the automotive vehicles.
Oh, autonomous vehicles. Yeah. What about them?
Yeah. Well, it seems like we have like 56 companies right now has been approved for permits as of today.
Yes.
I can screenshot the
headline.
The headline here, but
is it the Germany one?
to see if you can.
So
Is that a
just
Germany
you could
one?
just read the headline. It says there's 56 autonomous vehicle companies that have been approved.
Well, yeah, yeah, from Apple.
Uh-huh.
They're from have been approved from Apple. You have Zoox have permits, and from the State Department to test their vehicles with humans, as long as the humans are in there. So they're saying that they've been approved for
Right.
that. So
Yeah. But in China now, there's some that are approved without humans in the vehicles, apparently. And I read an article today that California has approved 9 of those vehicle companies to operate autonomously. I think Cheryl tweeted that out and CC'd our friend Greg Duffy, who is. Did you not,
Who's not
Cheryl?
a believer?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
Poly AI.
Yeah.
Got it.
So there's a lot of traction in this area around autonomous vehicles, particularly in China, where I believe in fact, they've stated they've started taxis now. Fully autonomous taxis are now being used in Beijing. And the question, and it was assumed they really want to ramp up Beijing in time for the Winter Olympics, because when people arrive for the Winter Olympics, they really want everyone who arrives to say, holy shit, Beijing is the future of the universe, and holy cow, China is the new superpower of the planet. So they're going to do everything they can to showcase every amazing technology that other countries cannot do, like autonomous taxis. And so you better believe that Beijing's going to be pushing incredibly hard, the same way, by the way, that Dubai was doing for the World Expo in 2020, which unfortunately got canceled due to COVID, but they were scheduled to announce the Hyperloop under the ground of a hypersonic train between Abu Dhabi and Dubai. And that's what cities do when they become the national, when it's their turn to host the world's biggest party, and all the journalists and superstars from around the world come in for the world. What do they call that event? World Expo 2020. And they want to showcase, that they have flying police helicopter drones, and they want to showcase how amazing they are. And, Beijing is going to go all out for the Winter Olympics and showcase, every possible technology just to show that they can, and cool. It's going to be, Beijing is going to become ground zero for a showcase of incredible, pioneering, groundbreaking, cutting edge technologies precisely for this reason. Yeah, but the autonomous car thing is one of the hottest areas to watch, no doubt, because it's not just about, it's far bigger than people assume, far, far bigger, because as we touched on not long ago, the real impressive thing about autonomous vehicles is once they're in place, they likely will be ad driven, ad subsidized. They, as vehicles, will be worth more to the manufacturers to own them and not sell them, like Tesla and these other companies will no longer want to sell the cars because the cars are too valuable to them to transport good products and people around town. And those rides will likely be free to the passengers because they'll be collecting data from the passengers about where they're going and all kinds of things from your phone as you step into the car, or using the app to order the car will tell them all kinds of interesting things that they can monetize from you. And so they'll be more than happy to take you a few kilometers in the car in exchange for all that juicy data. And we'll just be riding around with, and there'll be hopefully, less humans driving on the road, and it'll be a very interesting future. Anyways, but the autonomous.
I couldn't sleep the first night you told us this.
Yeah.
I won't be able to sleep tonight also.
Yeah. Well, let's see how it all shakes out. Other headlines folks want to share? I got a whole bunch more here. There's the Apple trial. Germany is now. Germany's antitrust regulator says it will conduct an in-depth analysis of Google's data processing. Since Google, the company is latest tech giant targeted under tough new powers, Facebook, Amazon activities are under similar scrutinies in Germany. And Germany is quickly becoming the party pooper for these big tech companies in Europe, really forcing them to comply with data privacy, data security issues, which Germany is notoriously sensitive to. And it's why the Germans still carry cash and don't want to participate in fintech. If you go to Berlin, you know exactly what I mean. Like they don't want to be tracked because there was something that happened there, back in the 30s, 40s, and 50s that they are still sensitive to. So that's why Germany's pushing on all of these big data companies about tracking people with data. Heyman?
And Tyler, there's a recent report that because Germany's ruling party will become most likely the Green Party, there will be some changes in terms of the budgeting and what legislations come through. And I was hoping that Dan was here too, because I think they're going to increase the amount of green tech. And I'm not sure how these legislations also will be given their governance.
There's an antitrust suit on Amazon too, just within 1 hour.
By who?
The paper. I just tweaked. You can read CNBC.
No, which country?
U.S.
U.S. is doing antitrust on Amazon? That's news indeed.
D.C. Attorney General sues Amazon on antitrust grounds, alleges it illegally raises prices.
Let me see that. That is news indeed.
I just tweaked.
I don't see it.
The lawsuit alleges Amazon illegally maintained monopoly power through pricing contracts with third-party sellers. I think I did. I tweaked already.
Not on Tech News Around the World.
Yeah, I did. TNATW.
That's right. Yeah.
Tyler, you have it from me as well.
Okay. Looking.
Oh, okay. I'm going to CC to you.
Let's see.
Steep decline.
Okay. DC Attorney General sues Amazon on antitrust grounds, alleging illegal raises prices. Washington, D.C. Attorney General Karl Racine announced Tuesday he's suing Amazon on antitrust grounds, claiming the company's practices have unfairly raised prices for consumers and suppressed innovation. That's going to be a tough one because Amazon has drastically reduced a lot of prices for everything across the board over the past 10 years or so. So that's going to be tricky to say that they've raised prices.
The thing is, Tyler, why now, right? I think Tim Cook just been, he was in the hearing. He was asked why did they reduce the price of certain app fees by 15% last couple of months, and then his response was that because of COVID, he wanted to help certain business out. The response from the senators was that no, I think it was because they were concerned about all the negative news that was coming out of the company, so they kind of preempt by reducing the prices.
Yeah.
So it's all of that. I think it's just the timing of it, right?
Well, what's going to happen is Amazon is the 8,000-pound gorilla in e-commerce at the moment, but that's about to change with all of this social commerce explosion that's about to happen. So a year from now, this would be very difficult to bring because Amazon will no longer be a monopoly in the same way it is today. But the main point is that Amazon requires third-party sellers who want to do business on Amazon to abide by its business solutions agreement. And that's the agreement that they feel is kind of locking in these third-party sellers. Yeah, that's not against the law to force somebody.
I'm just reading it. I don't see, like you, I'm puzzled about the motive now. Does anybody, Kieran, do you know about the DC attorney Karl Racine? Do you know what his game is? Or
do you think this might have something to do with the
hold on, breaking
MGM
news
deal and all that?
Breaking news. I just made another $20, y'all. I just got to... We're back.
Cha-ching.
Cha-ching, baby. Breaking news. Magda just sent me $20. Thank you, Magda.
You know what we need is the antitrust.
You're welcome.
We need some antitrust cases against you.
Yes, this is clearly an antitrust.
So you just monopolizing.
DC Attorney General sues Tyler for getting all the money in Clubhouse. Yeah, but this I don't. Well, let's see how this shakes out. And here's the weird thing about the American system of these antitrusts. As we saw in China over the past few weeks, when China says you have an antitrust, you get a bill for $2.9 billion, as Alibaba did, and you've got 5 days to pay it. In the U.S., the D.C. Attorney General sues Amazon, and then next year there's some headline, and then 2 years from now there's some other appeal, and 3 years from now there's some other appeal, and by then this D.C. Attorney General is no longer the D.C. Attorney General, and the case is gone, and who cares? And it speaks to the lethargic nature of the U.S. system. Is kind of comical to these tech companies that move, at hyper speed. And so Amazon is just going to be like, yeah, whatever, guy. We're just going to keep making billions of dollars a minute. You go bother. Here's a lawyer you can play with for the next 5 years. And
hopefully we'll get the update on a tech news around the world.
Yeah, 5 years from now we'll get the final decision in the court case. It's so comical how the U.S. legal system deals with tech. It's the world's slowest system combating the world's, one of the world's fastest systems. And it's comical. I mean, look at how the Chinese government dealt with their tech companies. It's like the government moved faster than the tech companies did, believe it or not. It's like quite impressive. Yeah.
Yeah, you should visit India, Tyler, and sue somebody, to be honest.
Yeah.
Tyler,
yes,
for living in Stockholm for so long, you do, and you say that US is slowest.
No.
Have you ever looked at the Swedish legislation?
Yes, trust me, I'm familiar. Yeah, the Swedes are extra careful and methodical in the way they do things. There's a process.
Akil, that's your breaking news item when you're 5 years from now when you're 22, right, or something.
I'll be 29, Carl, hopefully, and
okay.
I'll be investing with you.
Retweeting, Kieran just shared the Germany targets Google market power. So Germany's targeting Google, America's targeting Amazon, and it'll be curious to see which of them makes any progress first in the next 5 years.
Russia's targeting YouTube, Twitter. It's happening everywhere.
Yeah. But I mean, China's the one you don't want to piss off because they will make stuff happen in a matter of hours and not years. But a lot more headlines coming in here. But I want to pause. Shirley, do we have somebody that's going to pop in for an announcement?
We met on Twitter is trending on Twitter from India, by the way.
Yeah, so Stefan Breben is he's in the audience. Today he's hosting and having a conversation with Sir Tim Berners-Lee, sorry. So I think it would be really great if he can come and talk about it because as we all know, he's commonly known as the guy who invented the internet. He also worked at CERN and he's going to be sharing thoughts about the internet, data, digital, and perhaps maybe his hopes, but also express some of his disappointment. So it'd be really great to have Stefan come up and maybe share a bit more.
Yeah, is he on? I'm looking for him. Stefan, can you raise your hand? Cal, can you see him? Let me.
Can't see him. If you could raise your hand.
How do you spell his name?
Stephan, so Stefan, and then it's Breben. I'll just check.
I don't think he's in the room.
Yeah, because he was here. He might have left because should I just see if you just carry on? I'll see if I could just get him in for a last minute. I'll let you know.
Yeah, okay, and then we'll give everyone one chance to share a headline while she.
Yeah, Tyler, I got one for you.
Go ahead.
Yeah, this is Jonathan down here at the bottom. Hi. Thanks for bringing me up, Cal. One thing that I saw was, I don't know if you've covered this or not, so forgive me if this is redundant and let me know, but I saw that Musk was coordinating with Bitcoin miners to have them push for more energy transparency and adopt more renewable energy.
That was the first article of the day here, where it's assumed now that one of the news items that is causing a little bit of a bounce in the price of the cryptos is that Elon met with supposedly some crypto engineers about making more.
And Michael Sawyer.
Elon and Michael are working to make crypto more green, and that's getting everybody excited that Elon actually does love the crypto community and that put the train back on the track, as we say.
Yeah, there was an article on the block. I tagged Tech News, but they did create like a Bitcoin mining council. They're going to start trying to put together some standards for ESG and renewables investments and start trying to get things a little bit more mainstream, which I think is good for transparency purposes, but also for credibility of Bitcoin.
Exactly
so I
right.
thought that was interesting.
It's becoming one of the main issues for sure, is the green versus dirty debate. And if the crypto enthusiasts want to see the prices head up and to the right and continue to trend upward, I think they're going to have to come up with some solid evidence that it is green rather than debatable points. They're going to need some hard, firm evidence that it's green to appease Elon and by extension the rest of the world to get behind it, right? And they likely can do that, but I think that's what it's going to take for crypto to kind of come back at all-time highs. But that's a great point, and thank you for sharing that headline.
I thought it was interesting. They made a claim, at least, that the reason why Elon had pulled out for Bitcoin was because it wasn't it was environmentally damaging.
I don't think his investors will let him do what his, all of his investors and board members, etc., are going to say, yeah, that's all great and everything, but our company is based on the premise of lowering CO2, so we can't attach ourselves to something that arguably, debatably is good or bad. It needs to be provably good and provably not bad, more importantly, before we can really attach ourselves to this other technology. So he's had to decouple his enthusiasm for cryptos, Bitcoin specifically, for the time
Tyler,
being.
Tyler, one of the things.
Yeah.
Sorry, Tyler. Sorry, I jumped in.
Amanda's trying to jump in.
One of the things that people don't talk about is that they are having all this conversation at the level that they bought their Bitcoin, right? I mean, another 10% move either way. Just imagine the shareholders. Remember the reason that Elon Musk got involved in this? He wanted to show his shareholders how Bitcoin is equivalent to holding a cash. I mean, and how do you justify something that loses 20%? 300 million, just the entire profit of the Tesla in the last 10 years. He managed to lose it in 2 days. So I think there is a lot more sinister to this, right? And also Michael Sawyer, his average position of the Bitcoin is around 25,000. Another 5 to 10% move from where it is now, he's already going to be a lot of pressure from the people who invested in this space. So there is a lot of selfish motivation. It's got nothing to do with green, all of that stuff. So I think we need to be very mindful. It's again another manipulation in a hidden agenda.
I'd like to go after Amanda, please.
Go ahead, Amanda, and then Faraz.
Faraz, you can go. Hot mic. Apologies.
Okay, thanks, Amanda. Kieran, I agree with you. And what's interesting is a lot of people aren't noticing how he's playing with the price with these news headlines. And fine, he can make a statement saying, we're planning on holding our Bitcoin. But what people don't realize, or at least, the ones that aren't that informed, is he might be holding Bitcoin, but he can always be playing with covered calls and all sorts of other derivatives to be making huge amounts of returns on his holdings. And one of the biggest reasons for doing that is because one of his biggest companies, I keep forgetting the name of this company, which made him the quarterly loss, just left. So he's clearly playing with his prop. So obviously, it's extremely obvious that he is literally playing with the world with these headlines. I'm done.
It will be interesting to see how it shakes out, but I think the green, dirty argument for Bitcoin and crypto generally is going to be the thing that's going to hang over this whole conversation. Welcome back, Christian. Feel free to jump in if the article that anyone has found interesting on stage here. People are
little news on Eiffel Tower.
I got it right here. The Eiffel Tower to be illuminated using renewable hydrogen. The Eiffel Tower is set to be illuminated Tuesday using electricity produced from certified renewable hydrogen, which continues to sneak its head into the green tech conversation. Yeah. Say,
you mean green hydrogen?
What did I say?
Well, no, renewable hydrogen. I'm not totally aware of that, but are we talking about hydrogen made with green sources of energy?
Or is it moldy hydrogen?
Yeah. I'm not sure what the technical meaning of renewable hydrogen means. Yeah.
Yeah, it'll mean it comes from a green source of energy in the original
extraction. Maybe green hydrogen might key in the term a little bit better for folks.
Yep. And then ARM, the big semiconductor company, challenges Intel with new tech aimed at laptops. And it's surprising. We haven't had a chip headline in the last 24 hours. That's a first. Japan's largest farm lender to pour $90 billion into ESG projects. And then Jonathan came in to share that headline. We covered Google. Google's starting to roll out a new operating system called Fusia OS. And at the same time, Huawei is also rolling out their new operating system called Harmony. And why are they doing that? Because Huawei used to run on Google Android, and then America told Google, you cannot do that no more. Huawei is on our blacklist. You cannot give Huawei Android. And now there's a separate Huawei App Store, and that was a little confusing. And so Huawei was forced to make their own operating system that they're calling Harmony, which they're essentially launching today. And Google is launching The internet search giant Google has rolled out a new operating system called Fusia to its first-generation Nest Hub device, according to 9 to 5 Google. The report says the company has revealed this update, and the Fuchsia-based update for the Nest Hub is scheduled to roll out over the coming months. Today's release marks Google's biggest public step forward towards Fuchsia being an operating system that the average person can use. And on the Harmony OS front, let me find that headline really quick. For Huawei, it says Huawei to hold Harmony OS live stream event on June 2nd, where they're really going to make a huge kind of global announcement and push around this. Harmony OS will soon be arriving to Huawei's lineup of devices as the company rebrands. The new OS will debut during a live stream event held by Huawei on June 2nd at 8 p.m. local time. The company posted a teaser video, etc., which they certainly have to do. Earlier this month, we saw a video that compared Huawei's current Android-based system with Harmony OS side by side on different devices. At first glance, Harmony OS is visually similar to Android, and it may still be based on Android. So yeah, I'm sure they took a lot of the code base from Android, because Android essentially has a sort of open source nature to it that allows companies like Huawei to use it as the basis for their own development. Yeah, go ahead.
Can I add a little bit about that, Tyler?
Yeah, go ahead.
So actually, I also tagged you. I forwarded a tweet about this article from South China Morning Post about this. Give a little bit of flavor. Actually, looks like Huawei have generated a kind of frenzy internet in China. Obviously, there's a nationalist view back in China. Due to one thing people need to know, the more pressure the West, especially US, put on Huawei, the better sales of their domestic phone, right, and their equipment in China, and particularly some countries in Africa. So actually, really funny things. This morning, I was in a room. It's called like the Influencer Club. So the guy who runs the room is his name's La Fei. He's a chief strategist of Wanda Group. If you don't know, Wanda Group is one of Chinese conglomerate. Used to own AMC, but they just sold out all their position because they didn't believe that. With that being said, so over there, actually, a lot of people from Africa were in that room, especially those techies from Africa. To your point today, probably can ask them to confirm whether what I heard this morning is right or not. So one thing pretty obvious to me is like Huawei have a huge market penetration in Africa. So for them, if you ask those people, I don't know, you can check today. Ask them choose between let's say OS system, Apple OS system, and Huawei's Harmony OS. Probably they're gonna choose Huawei just because there's so many apps that were developed by Chinese developers as well as Huawei, specifically for African users. So as one thing, like a Chinese techie company have a huge advantage compared to US company. They have way more software engineer, so they can make a larger number of small like apps tailored for smaller, like poor users, if you may, like in Africa. So if there's only, I don't know, I'm guessing 10 times smaller revenue, potential revenue, probably even that the revenue will not be realized in like 2 or 3 years. Typically, the Western Silicon Valley-based startup would never bother even developing an app. Those actually would have some kind of attention from Huawei and other developers in China, probably from South Asia as well. And those, a lot of them based on, I would say Android system right now, potentially Harmony OS system. This is my guess, but I would love to learn whether that's the case. But one thing I want to say is like, in this, if you may, second or third tier, including China countries, the Huawei phone is really, really popular, actually. I mean, obviously the high-end phone get killed because the ban on the chips relate to US. But in the lower-end Huawei phone, they don't need to use those high-end chips, and they actually had a pretty good stockpile of cheap CPUs. So, gonna be interesting. And by the way, just as a kind of a bold speculation, I mean, a couple of years back, the Huawei was threatened by the US government that they cannot use Android system anymore. And look at what they got today. So I'm just wondering whether it's going to happen with the chips. Yes, Huawei do not have access to 7-nanometer chips. Give them a couple of years. There looks like they have a track record. If you are, ban them from something, they're gonna make them themselves in a few years. So I hope that's not the case. If that's the case, it just will actually deepen the decoupling between the U.S. and China. But I guess right now it's 50-50, I would say. But if that does happen, I don't think it's good news for the world, to be honest with you. This is Liam Dan speaking.
Yeah, I see your article. We just covered that story right before you came on stage. I think you heard about Huawei rolling out the Harmony OS. And you're right. I mean, as part of the decoupling is Android is a U.S. Tool, and the government doesn't want China to have access to Android, even though Google is probably very happy for them to have it. But the government's telling Google that they can't. That's my assumption anyway.
Another thing, sorry, just another plugin what I learned this morning. So like obviously in China, the programmers prefer to use C++ instead of Python. So actually in China, the utilization of C++ is way more prevalent than the C++'s utilization in the West, particularly in Silicon Valley. As we know, I actually learned C++ when I was in college.
No, you're going to scare everyone away if you start talking about programming languages here, Leon. Let's not do that.
No. So I didn't know about this. What I'm saying is like, the toolkit, right? The toolbox between the software engineer in China and the US are actually slightly different. So I just want to point that out. That means that, because of this difference, they're probably, going to build something, have a slightly compatibility issue if you really dig in deep in the weights.
True.
That's what
I
that would
don't
make
agree
sense.
with that. It's all based on GCC. So Chinese developers, we have Chinese developers, they base their C++ on GCC, whether you use Rust or whether you use Python. I mean, yeah, I don't think there'll be a problem there.
But good to know, because I worried this morning. That was not wasn't clear for me when I was listening to that. I'm not a software engineer. Full disclosure, I know nothing. Little bit.
When we discussed this 2 weeks ago, Tyler did say that we have to do a little bit of code addition just to port it onto the new OS. So I don't think that's going to be a problem for app developers.
Yes, Monica.
Tyler, there is, because Leon mentioned about SCMP, there have been 2 news headlines, separate of course, but this is about crypto, and the Bank of England, an exec there, as well as the PBOC in China have actually made a statement about cryptocurrencies. And this specifically highlights the point that while China is doubling down on its own CBDC, which they are rolling out, the PBOC has republished its joint statement reiterating that cryptocurrencies are not classified as money. They have no intrinsic value, can be easily manipulated.
So there's a Fed news breaking out just now about 20 minutes ago. So I don't know if you guys know Fed's member, Clarida. She's one of the senior members. She just said that I do not consider cryptocurrency to be a store of value or a means of exchange. And then there's lots of stuff coming out in the last 20 minutes around, she doesn't see Bitcoin has any use along that line. But anyway, so that's just coming from a senior member in the Fed in the last 20 minutes.
Thanks, Kieran. Somebody just sent Amanda just sent in a really interesting article. Twitter's CFO, Ned, who I like very much, actually. I did an interview with him inside Twitter Spaces. Says that e-commerce is becoming a more important part of Twitter. And he's the chief financial officer, so he would know a thing or two about that. And I've been telling people this, and this is being reported by none other than CNBC. So I'm going to retweet this. Twitter CFO Ned Siegel says, e-commerce is becoming more important for the company Twitter. And you might be asking yourself, e-commerce on Twitter? Unless you've joined us every day for the past 2 months, where I've been warning that this exact thing is coming to Twitter and every social network. As I just told Akil about 30 minutes ago, it will be everywhere. And Twitter most of all, where Twitter influencers are now going to be able to sell all kinds of stuff through their Twitter profiles with inside of rooms like this in Clubhouse and through videos and photos and everything else. Cal, Back me up here. How many times have I been saying that this is coming? And now Twitter's CFO is now telling CNBC.
I can't keep count.
Right. So
you started it actually almost on the second week.
Yes, exactly. So
I think it's 69 or 70.
Yeah, we're up to. Please start keeping count, Nikhil, on how many times I say social media and e-commerce are going to hit head on, including every social network. So let's start. That's officially number 70. So next time I bring it up, it'll be 71. So
Tyler,
yes, go ahead.
I just wanted to make one comment on that. Yeah. So we discussed this a bit yesterday in the Canada newsroom, and I made a comment, and I'm curious to see how that pans out because a lot, like for example, I have a Shopify store and I sell, but it's a hobby for me, and I know a lot of women that do the same. We have this on the side, but we have our day corporate job. So I'm interested to see how this live streaming and things like that, when we just don't have the time. We want to post stuff, go to work, and see what happens. I'm curious to see how this takes off, and if this is more like a younger demographic, or who's going to take advantage of this. I think it's going to be very interesting to see how this continues to pan out. I'm really excited to see how this works out for everyone.
Yeah, it's going to be massive, just like it is in Asia. The essence will be in the details. And to me, the interesting part is who is the financial backbone of this. As Google announced they're using Shopify, I'm willing to bet Facebook's going to do the same. It'll be very interesting to see who Twitter partners with. If all three are Shopify, I'm putting every penny I have into Shopify stock at that point.
Tyler, they mentioned in another article, I did some Googling, and if you do some digging, or I'll pull that article back up, Twitter, or I don't know if it was the CFO, they mentioned Shopify. So I think they are doing something with Shopify. You hit the nail on the head. I'll see if I can find it, and I'll send that one over too.
Hey, Taylor, can I just share some of my thoughts? I remember yesterday when you mentioned Shopify, I gave you a screenshot of my Bloomberg terminal, right?
Yes.
And at least from the Wall Street point of view, they don't give a damn.
Well, no, it's not that. No, Leon. It's not that they don't give a damn. It's that they don't know.
They don't know? Okay.
Correct.
Something else about your screenshot. I forgot to. I didn't bother to get.
Well, his point is that Shopify stock is not yet reflective of the fact that they're going to be the backbone of social commerce. But if you were to stop traders on Wall Street and say, "Are you excited about social commerce?" They're going to look at you like, "Excited about what?" And you're going to say, "Yeah, social networks plus e-commerce."
Also, I would go and see what they predicted on cell phones, what they predicted on Twitter, but also the screenshot you sent me. Most of the analysts were actually buy or outperform. So I didn't get.
So Kyle,
it doesn't matter.
Little bit background. So Wall Street always, Wall Street analysts they are company ass kisser, right? You know that.
Ass kissers. So, okay, but you're talking about your. By the way, Leon, you're a Wall Street analyst, right?
Yeah, I was. So I'm telling you, so if the stock real good, should be like 95% and above are buy.
Mm-hmm.
If they don't have confidence, they exaggerate everything, right? That's just they want to get paid from the client, which are hedge fund manager, as well as their covered company, right? So they want to have both. That's just how greedy we are, my old colleague, right? So we cannot spite them out anyone. The worst case scenario, we just say hold. Hold actually means you should sell that piece of crap. That's what I really want to say.
So Leon, so where are you going with this discussion?
Sorry, I'm just saying that since Tyler talking about Shopify, just could be like just they are just stupid, right? They didn't realize the value of it.
No,
but I just want to know.
It's not that they're stupid.
What's really go?
No, it's because Shopify has an NDA. You know what an NDA is? They have a contract as a partner that says they can't reveal because Google made a kind of a big announcement in the way that Google makes announcements at their Google I/O event. Facebook is going to make a much bigger announcement of their partnership with Shopify on June 2nd, and then Twitter, and maybe even Apple. When people start making these big announcements, which Shopify cannot do because they're under NDAs that they've done these partnerships, but once those announcements are made, that's why I'm saying on June 2nd, I bet you Facebook's going to say, Tyler. Hey, they're going to announce to the whole world, we are changing from our old business model of tracking people's data with cookies because Google and Apple are no longer letting us use those cookies, and that is an existential threat to our business as it exists for the past 10 years. So we are switching to a whole new, even bigger and better business of social commerce. It's $1 trillion business in China. We're going to do it here in the West. And here's what it looks like. And by the way, they'll mention very quietly, just as Google did, that Shopify is helping power it all. And that's the minute,
So Shopify, we already knew about it. We knew about Facebook and Shopify before.
Right? In February, when they announced the Shopify, so it's the stocks jumped about 8-10%.
Correct.
Right? When they announced that it's the first time that they offering the payment option outside of
right. But here's the problem. Right. So Facebook said
it's priced in.
I know. Well, to a degree. It is priced in today before the world is aware that social commerce is a phenomena that's coming.
Consumer. Right. The consumer investor is not aware.
No. What I mean is, most people don't realize how big social commerce is going to be in America.
Exactly. That's the point. That's the point. Exactly.
That's the point.
So at the moment, in the US is 20 billion, and in China is 400 billion, right? As per the data, the PDD, all of the stuff that we discussed. The social commerce revenue in China last year is $400 billion. In the US, it's only 20 billion.
Yeah, here's my point is, if Facebook says, hey, we're partnering with Shopify, the whole world's going to be like, okay, that's nice. What does that mean? That doesn't really change anything. Until they realize and start seeing what it looks like and feels like, and they start buying, and next thing they know, their wives and their kids are spending their entire paycheck on live streaming shit on Facebook, and then they're going to realize, holy shit, Shopify is going to be the next Amazon, because
it's huge.
They're going to look at their credit card statement and realize all their money is going to Facebook live streaming purchases, and then they'll realize, oh shit, that's why I want to buy Shopify stock. I didn't realize it was going to be this big. They knew that there was a partnership. They just had no idea what that meant.
So I'm going to tweet this out and see who picks it up.
Tyler, right now, if I buy a book, for example, let's say I buy a book for $12, and let's say the Instagram's going to have a feature soon. I'm assuming like the PDD, which is that if I can get another 3 other people, like my son's school, to buy the same book, I'm literally going to have that book free for myself. Right? Is that all that feature is going to come available for someone like me? I'll be using my reels to market a product. If I can get a 40-50% discount just because I managed to get a group of my friends and my children's families to buy a certain item that we regularly buy. So I think it's a game changer.
So I wonder what's going to happen, I guess, as a complement to this part of the discussion, right? So social commerce is going to be a big boost for these platforms. What's going to happen to the businesses that don't sell products but sell services that have been dependent on the tracking that Facebook is no longer able to do? I wonder whether there would be some other alternative that could emerge on the scene.
You can still do Shopify. You can still use Shopify for selling services. So you can still do a plugin, like a pin, for being able to shop a service. And Shopify already is integrated with Facebook on normal posts and on being able to purchase products from Facebook, from Instagram, via just simple posts. So it's a no-brainer that it's going to do the same thing for the live stream shopping.
So
and I guess maybe service isn't the right category, but I'm thinking about sponsored ads, if you will, that let's say I have a small business and I'm trying to generate traffic. So, or a university that, perhaps Shopify could offer, some sort of solution. The product is different in terms of its format. So I am just curious in terms of what that would look like.
So check this out. Amanda, brilliant as she is, just found an article from March 4th, and the headline is Twitter tests new e-commerce features. And then in the article, buried in this little TechCrunch article that everyone overlooked, it says, Twitter confirmed it's testing a new way to display tweets that link out to e-commerce product pages, like products on Shopify stores, for example. With a new tweet card format, the company is experimenting with tweets that include a big shop button and integrate product details directly into the tweet itself, including the product name, shop name, and product pricing. The experiment was spotted by social media consultant Matt Navarra, who tweeted out screenshots of the new experience, again, 2 months ago. By the way, this is incredibly common that social media platforms test things 2, 3, 4, 5 months in advance before they make them public. And this article was somebody caught Twitter testing something 2 months ago. And they often test things in New Zealand, which are English speaking but very remote, and the press doesn't have much access into New Zealand. For example, video game people do it all the time as well. So this guy, Matt Navarra, got a screenshot of Twitter testing social shopping with, guess who?
Shopify. You just bought the stock, didn't you?
Shopify. So in the test that this guy is testing, the test is done with Shopify, no less. And it shows, I'm going to tweet it out now so you can see it for yourself, what it looks like. There's a screenshot of it. And it's a Twitter tweet with an image of the product with a buy now button directly in Twitter. And I bet you do not leave Twitter, most likely, because that's sort of the whole nature of the game, is the social networks are going to become the e-commerce portals. So get ready for...
I just tweeted the whole thing out at Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs, all the big guys. I'm going to see who picks it up.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see. In 6 minutes, Ben and friends are going to start the MedTech news with Dr. Matt and Heyman and others. And we're all going to jump over there in 6 minutes. It's called Tuesday MedTech News, heart emoji. So you can see us all over there in about 6 minutes. So that gives us just enough time for 1 or 2 more headlines if anyone's burning on stage with something to share.
Did you do the DC Sui Amazon one?
Was that Justin?
Yes, it was.
Go, Justin.
Yeah, we touched on it.
Elaborate.
Love your
You can
angle.
elaborate. Yeah.
Go, Justin. Do it.
Yeah, no.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to provide another angle. I'm sure it was already covered by the very brilliant people on stage. But the way that this antitrust stuff is beginning to work and to come out is very similar to, surprisingly maybe to people, the gay rights movement, how it was done at the state level, the marijuana movement, how it's basically being done at the state level, and now the big tech movement. It's being done. We're just, for this purpose, is just assume DC is a state. There are a lot of antitrust and other major pieces of lawsuits coming against these big tech companies. And because there's gridlock in Congress, you all know that, everybody knows that, everybody can see it. What's happening is there's beginning to be movement at the state level. And that's important because eventually the politicians in the Senate and the politicians in the House that work with these state attorney generals who get voted into office by these people that support these state attorney generals who are carrying these lawsuits forward, ultimately it will reach a tipping point. So there's 2 ways that this can kind of play out. Either these lawsuits break through, and it could take, a decade or longer, and ultimately these companies, like the DC lawsuit, potentially are forced to break up in some way, shape, or form. Even if it's minor, that would still be pretty big. Or a tipping point is reached not only in political will by leaderships at the state level, which will translate to the federal level because they all live in the same states, folks, or it will become such a tipping point in the media that eventually you will have federal legislation moving forward. So I think that this is just really, really important. I wanted to highlight it because in Silicon Valley, at all levels of tech, whether a startup with $3 million in seed funding or a $100 billion corporation, there tends to be this demigod type atmosphere where these people are running society. These people are doing what government can't do. We're in the private sector. We're better than government. And ultimately, they kind of delude themselves into a false sense of security. And I think that this lawsuit, along with the other lawsuits that are currently ongoing, along with Josh Hawley and Amy Klobuchar coming out and saying they support action against these companies, it's really getting close to a tipping point. And if you're in the tech world, this could be very good news for you if you have a startup, because breaking up these large companies could re-level the playing field and create opportunities that we don't even see right now. So I did want to point that out.
Yeah, thank you, Justin. And for those who don't know Justin, he's one of my absolute favorite voices in all of Clubhouse on any topic. He happens to be does a room all around the intersection of politics and how it overlaps with tech. So please do give him a follow. And I imagine you have upcoming. You have a Congress members of Congress joining you this week, do you not?
I had one tonight, but for the fourth time he's canceled on me, so it really pisses me off. But we are trying to get in either a New York Times writer or a Washington Post writer, because it's the 1 year to the day that George Floyd was murdered.
Oh, right.
So we're trying to do a social justice angle there. But yes, we do have. If not the well, what your guests will want to hear is Saturday we have the New York Times Moscow, I want to say bureau chief, coming in to discuss Belarus and Ryanair, and then next Saturday we have next Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern time we have the architect of Trump's China policy, and he's going to be focusing a lot on tech because that was a big focus of the sanctions with Huawei, with ZTE, and with trade. So that should be interesting because he's basically going to make the argument that now moving forward, all these administrations that come in will do what Trump did, and this is why they need to do X, Y, and Z. So should be interesting for your listeners.
Very cool.
Can I just chime in the last one? Since Justin mentioned about Huawei, only fair end up with another, kind of a negative or slightly negative news about Huawei. I always believe, we all friends, we should keep close to each other, but we keep our enemy even closer, right? So just share something with you, just for you, Justin. So just really fresh news that Huawei won't be making cars after all. They put a kind of a smoker in this April. They said, Huawei indicate they may make an electric car, which actually scares shit out of all those EV cars in China because they know Huawei's track record, right? They are brutal in terms of a competition, both domestically as well as internationally. Domestically speaking, they are even more brutal. So when they decided to do that, indicate they wanted to do that, actually they never give out a full PR. I remember the 3 dummies of EV in China, the stock price just dropped. So just tell you how Huawei just have a head fake, just scare shit out of those people.
Yeah.
But today there's another news that they won't do that anymore. Right. I don't know whether it's a good thing or bad thing, but at least probably Justin, the U.S. government is a pressure on them, let them realize they cannot open 2 battlefront at the same time. Yeah, well, just focus on Huawei versus Apple/Google.
Right.
For now.
Well, Huawei's pivoting to software.
Correct.
So they'll still keep investing in the autonomous vehicle technology that they've been developing.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, in order to free up their dependency on American technology, they'll move to software in the short term until, as Lawrence says, they can manufacture a chipset in China. Down to, well, by the time they get that capability, they'll have to be targeting for 3 nanometers.
Yeah,
but we covered certainly 7 nanometers.
We covered the headline about 2 hours ago that Huawei CEO said they're going to stop hardware and go into software, and cars are definitely hardware. But I want to leave on a very positive note and a perfect segue into the next room, which is a medtech room. This is from newscientist.com. Partial sight restored for man who is blind thanks to optogenetics. A man who is blind has had glimmers of vision restored thanks to a high-tech treatment using optogenetics, which involves genetically altering nerve cells so they respond to light. A French firm called GenSight Biologics has published results showing that the first recipient of its treatment can recognize different objects in lab tests. And the quote is, "It's exciting to see the first publication on human optogenetics," says Ed Boyden at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT, and a co-inventor of optogenetics. So giving sight back to somebody who apparently was born blind with nerve damage. That's truly fascinating. And that's what the MedTech newsroom is all about, which just started a few minutes ago. And I'm very happy to see Dr. Matt, Dr. Danish, and Heyman, and Ben and Ellen, who are all in the medical field, have already got it started. It's called the Tuesday MedTech News, and we will see everybody over there. And but hope to see you back here tomorrow for Tech News Around the World. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank
Cheers,
you.
everybody.
Take care, everyone.